Detective Sergeant. You're assigned to homicide detail. You get a call from the receiving hospital in your city. A dead body has been left in the hospital elevator. There's no lead to the identity of the corpse. There's no apparent cause of death. Your job, investigate.
It was Wednesday, November 9th. It was foggy in Los Angeles. We were working the night watch out of homicide detail. My partner's Bill Lockwood. The boss is Captain Lorman. My name's Friday. It was 11:28 p.m. when we got to the third floor at Georgia Street Receiving Hospital. Dr. Terrell's office.
Friday, glad to see you. Been waiting for you.
We made it as soon as we could, Doctor. I'd like to have you meet my new partner, Bill Lockwood. Dr. Terrell, Bill.
How are you? I think I've seen you around, Lockwood.
Yes, sir. How are you?
I understand you got a problem, Doc. What's the story?
Odd one. Happened a few minutes after 11. You want to sit down a minute? I'll fill you in before we go back and take a look at the body.
All right, thank you very much.
I understand it's a woman, that right?
Yeah, Grace Morgan. She's a night nurse on duty. She told me she was sitting at the desk checking over some patients' cards. It was about 5-10 minutes after 11 when she heard the elevator come up.
Mm-hmm.
She heard the elevator stop and the doors open. Kept on checking the cards there, didn't pay any attention to it, and then she realized nobody got out of the elevator. She looked up, and the elevator doors were still open. She saw this young woman slumped over in a wheelchair sitting there in the elevator.
The woman was alone, was she?
That's right. The nurse went over and wheeled her out of the elevator. The woman was wearing a nightgown, a bathrobe over that. She was unconscious. Nurse called me. The two of us took the woman into a treatment room. I examined her. She was dead.
Any indication how long?
Body was still warm. She'd only been dead a short time.
Any idea of the cause of death?
I noticed a couple of abrasions on her right shoulder, another one in the right temporal region. Not positive, but I don't think any of them were severe enough to cause death.
No other markings at all?
No, she seemed to have been in good physical condition. Noticed a strong smell of alcohol, though. Could be she'd been drinking.
Is the nurse pretty sure the woman came up the elevator alone? Possibility one of the attendants might have brought her up?
No, I checked with the attendant on duty down in the first floor lobby, Ray Collins. He didn't bring her up. He said a man came in the lobby about 11 o'clock. Said he had a sick woman out in his car. He asked for a wheelchair to bring her in. Ray asked if he could help, but the man said he'd take care of it. That's all Ray knows about it. He let the man have a wheelchair, then he went in the back room to change some linens on the ambulance stretcher.
Mm-hmm. Any possibility one of the other attendants might have brought her up in the elevator?
No, Collins was the only attendant on duty.
I'd like to talk to him. Is he still around?
Yeah, I knew you'd want to see him. He was off duty 11:30. I held him over. He's down at the corner having a sandwich. He ought to be back in a few minutes.
And what do you figure, Doctor? Think the woman could have operated the elevator herself?
Possible. Not too probable, though. It's a self-operating elevator, automatic.
Mm-hmm.
Someone could have wheeled the woman into the elevator, pushed the button for the third floor, and then stepped back. Would have taken her straight up.
Yeah. The nurse is sure the elevator didn't go back down after it got up here, huh?
Positive. She heard the elevator doors open. They stayed that way. She kept waiting for someone to come out, and that's what attracted her attention.
I see. How about identification? The woman have a purse with her or anything like that, Doc?
No, all she had was what she was wearing, nightgown, slippers, and bathrobe. Let's go back and have a look. I'll show you.
Okay, thank you.
You say the only markings on the body are those abrasions on the shoulder and the forehead.
Yeah, that's right.
And you don't think that's why she's dead? You got any ideas at all?
Well, I wouldn't want to say, Lockwood. Strange one. Going to have to wait for the autopsy.
Well, how about the wheelchair the woman came up in, Doc? Where's it now?
Back here in the same room with the body. I gave notice it wasn't to be touched. I knew you'd want to check.
Oh, fine.
In here.
All right to smoke in here?
Yeah, sure.
Fine. Want a cigarette?
No, thanks.
Bill?
No.
Over here on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Nurse put the woman's clothing over there. Nightgown, slippers, bathrobe.
I see.
Seems to be a fairly young woman.
I'd say in her early 30s. Nice-looking girl. Well-groomed. Notice her hair, her fingernails. Well-kept.
And bruise there on her head. Took a pretty good blow to cause that, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, might even be worse than it looks. Hard to say right now. Other abrasions I was telling you about, right here along the clavicle, seem to be fairly distinct. 3 or 4 of them.
That's all of them, huh?
That's it. Like I say, we'll know more after they post the body.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at the clothing over here.
Want to check over the bathrobe, Bill?
Yeah.
There's no label here. Size marking, though. Size 34. Just an ordinary rayon nightgown. Seems to be fairly new. It's not damaged.
Nothing on the bathrobe, Joe. Both pockets empty. No visible markings. Manufacturer's label here. Fairly common trade name.
Mm-hmm. Laundry marks?
No, none showing. We can have the crime lab check them over. How about the slippers?
No, it's the same. Nothing.
You fellas want me to notify the coroner?
No, we'll get it, Doc. We have to call in for the crime lab crew anyway.
It looks like a rough one. We don't even know what we've got.
I can't figure it. If somebody murdered the woman, why'd they bring her here to die?
Yeah.
If she was sick or hurt and they were worried enough about it to bring her here, why'd they want to get rid of her? Leave her alone in an elevator.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. Somebody's got something to hide.
Sure could use a lead. Man puts her on the elevator and sends her up 3 floors. Don't know who she is, how she died. Don't even know where she came from.
Well, there's no choice. We'll just start at the beginning.
Yeah?
Ground floor. 11:52 p.m. The receiving hospital attendant, Ray Collins, returned, and we interviewed him in Dr. Terrell's office. He told us substantially the same thing the doctor had told us. At a few minutes past 11 o'clock that night, a man entered the lobby of the hospital and asked for a wheelchair to move a patient up to the 3rd floor. Collins stated he gave the man the wheelchair. The man refused his offer of assistance, and Collins went on about his work. He didn't see the patient, and he didn't see any car parked outside, and he was able to give us only a partial description of the man himself. A male Caucasian, about 35 years old, short, heavy build, dark hair. The crew from the crime lab arrived and began their investigation. The body was photographed and fingerprinted, and the wheelchair was also dusted for prints. The clothing was packed up to be taken downtown for further examination. After the men from the crime lab left, Bill Lockwood began a canvass of the immediate neighborhood for possible witnesses. Meantime, I checked with the rest of the hospital personnel and the patients. They could tell me nothing. 12:30 a.m. I met Bill back at Dr. Terrell's office.
How'd you do, Joe? Any luck?
Well, I talked to the nurses and some of the other attendants. They couldn't help any. Checked with the dispatcher on incoming and outgoing ambulances. Nothing there. What about you?
No good. Most of the business places around here are locked up. Talked to the newsboy down at the corner. He was about the only one on the street. He didn't see anything.
Sure going slow, isn't it? Might give Bergman a call, see if he's got the woman's prints classified yet.
How about the coroner? Show up yet?
Yeah, I think he's in there now. Yes, ma'am. Give me station 2557. Yeah, that's right. Leighton Prince. Hi, let me talk to Bergman, please. Right. Yeah, Dean, Joe Friday. No, we're still over at the hospital. You do any good on those prints? Uh-huh. Yeah, that's what we figured. How about her prints? Mm-hmm. Okay, Dean, thanks. Yeah, right. Well, we're still batting 1,000.
What do you say? They make her prints?
Nothing in records on her. Dean's going to send along a set to Washington, see if they got anything.
How about the wheelchair? Any prints there?
Well, the nurses and Doc Terrell's, that's all. We figured on that, didn't we?
Lousy luck.
Sure is. I checked with missing persons while you were out. There's nothing there either.
Well, that about finishes up here, huh?
Yeah, we better get back to the office.
Joe?
Yeah,
I
Don.
think I got something for you here.
Yeah?
Nurse at the switchboard got a call a minute ago. Man's voice wanted to know the condition of Carla Cheswick.
Mm-hmm.
Nurse checked the list of patients, didn't find anyone by that name. The man insisted she's here. The nurse asked him what time the woman was admitted to the hospital. He told her 11 o'clock tonight.
Yeah?
The man said, I know she's there. I brought her myself.
Along with Dr. Terrell, Bill Lockwood and I went down the hall and talked to the nurse who'd received the phone call. She told us that she tried to question the caller as to his name and his relationship to the alleged patient, Carla Cheswick, but the man refused and hung up. We put in a call to R&I and asked him to run the name for us. There was no one by that name in the files. We went back to the doctor's office and started checking through the telephone directories. In the northwestern section, we found a listing for a Mrs. Carla Z. Cheswick on North Capitol Avenue. We called the number, but there was no answer. Then we checked with the office, told them what we had, and that we were going to follow through on it. 1:18 a.m. It was only a possibility, but it had to be checked out. Bill Lockwood and I left Georgia Street Receiving Hospital, got in the car, and drove out to the address on North Capitol Avenue. It was a large apartment house, fairly new. The name on the mailbox for apartment 18 was Mrs. Carla Cheswick. We rang, but there was no answer. We finally had to get the manager out of bed, a Mrs. Herbert. We identified ourselves and explained the reason for our visit. She got a pass key, showed us upstairs to the second floor, and let us in apartment 18. There was no one there, but there was evidence of a recent party within a matter of hours. Half-filled cocktail glasses, an empty whiskey bottle, a glass bowl containing partially melted ice cubes. An end table in the corner had been overturned. In the bedroom, women's clothing was scattered on the floor and on the dressing table. On the mantel in the living room, there was a picture of a woman.
Did you notice anything unusual about her at that time, Miss Herbert? I mean, anything out of the ordinary?
No, don't think so. She'd been drinking some. I'm pretty sure of that, but that's not unusual for Mrs. Cheswick. She drinks quite a bit. Parties and things. Runs around a lot.
Yes, ma'am. You didn't notice anything about her face? No cuts, bruises, anything like that?
No, nothing like that. Why?
And you told us she had quite a few men friends. Do you know any of their names, where they live?
No, can't say to do. She was just one of the tenants. I didn't try to get acquainted. Didn't have much in common with her. The other tenants didn't either, matter of fact. She kept pretty much to herself, her and her friends.
Mm-hmm. I see. Now, about this party she had last night, Miss Herbert, you say you don't know who was there with her?
No, I'm afraid I don't. When I called her on the phone to ask her to quiet things down, I heard that one man's voice talking. That's about all, though. I couldn't tell you who was there.
Well, is there anyone at all that you know of that was close to her? I mean, someone we could talk to about her.
Well, her husband, I suppose. He's the only one close to her I know. He comes around every month and takes care of the rent. Kind of a peculiar thing, but I never questioned it. I figured it's their business, live and let live.
You have any idea where we can find the husband, ma'am?
No, I'm not sure. He works at a machine shop out near Glendale. I have his home address in my rent book downstairs if you want it.
Yes, ma'am, we'd like to have that if we could. Would you happen to know how Mrs. Cheswick and her husband got along? I mean, this separation of theirs. Was it friendly, or did they still quarrel quite a bit?
No, as far as I know, they got along all right, as long as they didn't have to live together. Poor Mr. Cheswick, I feel sorry for him. He's going to take it hard. His wife, I don't know whether to blame or pity her. She was a terrible disappointment to him.
That's so?
I had a long talk with him once. Seemed like such a nice man, hard worker. And his wife, he was so disgusted. I mean, drinking all the time, going out with different men. Bitter disappointment. He told me how he felt.
Well, did he seem violent on the subject? I mean, did he feel anger toward his wife, would you know?
No, just pity. He said he'd rather have her dead than go on the way she was.
We checked through the dead woman's apartment for names and addresses of some of her men friends, but we found nothing. The crew from the crime lab went over the apartment thoroughly. The only evidence found were fingerprints on some of the cocktail glasses. Along with the apartment manager, Mrs. Herbert, we went downstairs and she gave us Mr. Cheswick's home address and also his place of employment. 2:30 a.m. We got to a phone and called Cheswick's home, but the people he was staying with told us that he wasn't there. He was working the all-night shift at a farm implement factory on Glendale Boulevard. 3:05 a.m. Bill and I drove out to the factory and checked with the night personnel superintendent. He directed us to the factory repair shop where Cheswick was employed as a welder. The foreman at the repair shop pointed him out for us. Cheswick was working on the welding line, a tall, thin man, slight build. Bill Lockwood and I went back and introduced ourselves.
Yes, sir, Ernie Cheswick. That's my name. What can I do for you?
I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes if we could. It's about your wife.
Carla? What's the matter? Is she in trouble again?
Well, it might be better if we could step outside and talk. It won't take very long.
All right, I got to finish up this little job here, if you don't mind waiting. A couple of pieces of tubing. It won't take a minute.
Sure, you go right ahead.
You might stand back a couple of steps. This thing pops a little.
Okay, thanks.
Ah, too much oxygen. Have to light it again. Yeah, that does it.
Don't look at the flames, Joe. Bad for your eyes.
Yeah, I know.
They're sure in their money, don't they?
Yeah, they seem to. A lot of work.
Finish the second here. Okay, that's got it. Now, what's this about my wife, Sergeant? What's the matter?
We understand you're separated from her, Mr. Cheswick.
Yeah, that's right. About a year ago now. I finally gave it up as a bad job. Wasn't anything I could do for her. Nothing anybody could do for her. Hopeless.
Well, when's the last time you saw her?
First of the month, went by to pay her rent. Dropped in to say hello, that's all. I stay away as much as I can. No good bum, that's about all you can say about her. Shame to admit I was even married to her. Why do you ask, anyway?
Your wife's dead, Mr. Cheswick.
Huh?
Yes, sir. She died late last night. Found her at Georgia Street Receiving Hospital.
Oh. Guess I've been expecting something like that. I can't feel sorry. Probably the best thing for her. How'd it happen?
Well, we're not sure. I wonder if we could step outside. Sure be a lot easier to talk, wouldn't it?
Yeah, all right.
Fine.
Over here, we can duck out the back way.
Okay.
You say they found her at Georgia Street, huh? What was it? She in an accident?
Oh, so it doesn't look like that. We're going to have to wait for the coroner's report. What time do you check in at night for work, Mr. Cheswick?
You're supposed to be on the job by 10 o'clock. I punched in before that tonight. Why?
A routine question. I suppose the men around the plant will vouch for you. You checked in at 10 and you've been here ever since?
Yeah, that's right. You can ask any of them. What's the pitch? You think I had something to do with it? Carla getting killed?
Well, we didn't say that, Cheswick. Your wife's dead, and we have to check on all the leads, all the possible suspects.
Well, I don't know how it happened, but I didn't have anything to do with it. She wasn't well. I lived 9 years with her. Lousiest 9 years of my life. Booze, parties, going out all the time. She wasn't a wife. She didn't know what the word meant.
I understand she'd been running around with different men lately. Do you happen to know any of them?
No, I don't know. I couldn't care less. Stupid dame, Sergeant. That's the easiest way you can let her off. I tried to make a go of it. Wasn't any good. I worked for her, tried to give her everything she wanted. Didn't make any difference.
Yeah?
She was a bum. Some of them must be born that way, a bum dame. I could have killed her. I had reason enough to. I didn't.
How about your wife's drinking habits? She do most of it at home, or did she go out to bars?
Always at the bar. Only one place she ever went to. Place on 8th and Rosewood, right on the corner. Went there all the time, 6, 7 nights a week. She'd hang over the bar all night. How'd you like to put up with that for 9 years, huh? Drinking, going off somewhere on weekend.
Well, how come it lasted that long, Cheswick?
I don't know. I guess I should have had my head examined. Just a bum. I figured I could change her. Kept trying. Never worked out. After the drinking, she'd have these terrific headaches. It'd make her sick. I'd stay home from work and take care of her, wait on her hand and foot. She always made promises, nothing but a liar. As soon as she got well, she'd start it all over again, same thing.
Yeah.
Just a bum, a tramp. No good at all, no good. She's a tramp, no good tramp.
Cheswick? Mr. Cheswick, is there anything we can do?
Carla, she's dead. Carla.
When the dead woman's husband, Ernest Cheswick, recovered, we continued questioning him, but we got nowhere. Before we left the plant, we checked his time card, talked to the machine shop foreman and some of the men Cheswick worked with. We got the same story all along the line. Cheswick had showed up for work at 9:46 p.m. the night before and had not left the plant since that time. 4:35 a.m. Bill and I got in the car, drove back to the office, and typed up a 15.7 report for Captain Lorman. 8:30 a.m., over in the county morgue, the body of Mrs. Cheswick was being posted. A few minutes past 10 a.m., Bill Lockwood and I drove out to a bar on the corner of 8th and Rosewood, the same bar where Ernest Cheswick told us his wife did most of her drinking. It was a typical neighborhood cocktail lounge in the early morning. 2 customers sipping beer at the far end of the bar. The manager busy washing glasses and bringing in supplies. We called him over and identified ourselves.
Popular girl. Married old Ernie Cheswick. They're separated now.
Yeah, well, do you know if she was in here last night?
That's right, she was. Hardly Mrs. Knight. Why?
Would you happen to know about what time she left last night?
8:30, about that. You might ask that fellow there down at the end of the bar. He'd know better than me.
Well, how's that?
He left with her.
November 10th, Thursday, 10:14 a.m. The manager of the cocktail lounge pointed out the man at the end of the bar who was supposed to have left the place shortly after 8 o'clock the night before with the dead woman, Carla Cheswick. Bill Lockwood and I went up to the man, identified ourselves, and questioned him briefly. He appeared tense and highly nervous. He told us his name was John Gables, an assistant sales manager for a downtown jewelry concern. He didn't deny that he was in the bar the night before, but he refused to admit that he left with Mrs. Cheswick. He insisted he didn't even know her. We asked him to account for how he spent his time the night before, but he refused. We got in the car and drove downtown to the city hall. While Bill took the suspect to the interrogation room, I stopped by the R&I counter and had to make a run on Gables. He had no previous criminal record. I called the morgue, but there was no report on the autopsy yet. 10:52 a.m. I signed in at the office, briefed Captain Lorman on the developments, and then I headed down the hall for the interrogation room.
We had a couple of drinks together, and that's all there was to it. You can ask anybody who was there. She got up and left by herself. I didn't go with her.
And Joe.
Yeah.
Gables here was just telling me he did see Mrs. Cheswick in the bar last night. Had a couple of drinks with her.
Why'd you hold out, Gables? Why couldn't you told us that when we asked you?
I didn't remember then. You came up to me in the bar, started asking questions. I got all rattled. Didn't make any difference, though. I didn't even know her name. Just had those couple of drinks with her, and then she got up and left. That's all. I didn't go out with her.
And the bartender says you did. He's sure of it. Says he can get half a dozen other people to back him up.
Well, he's wrong. He's got to be. He's thinking of somebody else.
Well, if you didn't leave the bar with Ms. Cheswick, when did you leave?
I don't know. About 5 or 10 minutes later, I guess.
Where'd you go then?
I walked around a little bit, got a little fresh air. And I went to a show.
Which one?
I don't remember the name of the place. It's on Rosewood, a couple of blocks down from the bar.
What picture did you see?
I'm not sure. I had a couple of drinks.
You went to the movies. You don't even know what you saw.
Well, I told you I had a couple of drinks. Feeling pretty good. I just don't remember, that's all.
Not much of an alibi, Gables.
What are you talking about? I don't need an alibi.
A woman's dead, mister. You were with her the last time she was seen alive.
I wasn't with her. I don't care what anybody tells you. I wasn't with her.
This movie you say you went to. What time did you get out?
After midnight, I think. I don't remember.
Where'd you go after that?
Bar, had a few more drinks, and then I went back to my hotel.
Which bar was that?
Place on West 7th. I go there sometimes. I know the bartender.
What time did you leave there?
Closing time, 2 o'clock, and then I went back to my hotel.
You say you know the bartender there. I guess he'd be glad to vouch for you. I mean that you were there when you said you were.
I don't know. Maybe not. He was pretty busy last night. Maybe he didn't notice me.
How about your hotel?
Huh?
The desk clerk. Somebody like that. They should be able to tell what time you got in, don't you think?
Well, they wouldn't know. I always carry my key with me. I go in the side door. They wouldn't know what time I got in.
What are you trying to sell, mister?
What are you talking about?
You knocked around town from 8 o'clock last night till past 2 o'clock this morning. You can't think of anyone that could vouch for you, where you were, what time you got there, what time you left?
I can't think of anybody right now. I don't take down names and addresses every time somebody looks at me. What's the difference anyway? I didn't have anything to do with the girl.
This difference, Gables. The attendant at the hospital, he got a good look at the man who came in and asked for that wheelchair. He gave us the man's description. It fits you pretty close.
So what? It doesn't mean anything. He could make a mistake, too, just like that bartender.
They're all wrong but you. Is that what you're trying to say?
Look, as far as I'm concerned, I only got one thing to say. I had a couple of drinks with
drinks with Carla last night, and that's all. She left by herself. I didn't even go near the apartment.
How'd you know she had an apartment?
Well, you told me. You said so.
No, we didn't say anything like that.
And I guess I heard it around the bar. Maybe she mentioned to me. Yeah, that's probably it.
Why don't you come off it, Gables?
Come off what? I don't even know what you're getting at.
We want a straight story, and we're not getting it. You told us you didn't even know the Cheswick woman before last night. You didn't even know her name.
That's right.
Then why'd you say Carla just a minute ago? You said I had a couple of drinks with Carla.
I say that?
That's what you said.
Maybe I just hadn't remembered. I was drinking quite a bit, talking to her. Maybe I just remembered it.
Won't do, Gables. Story doesn't hold water. How about it?
I don't know. I was drinking quite a bit. A lot of things I don't remember.
How about giving it to us straight? What do you remember?
I thought about it all night. The more I went over it, the worse it got. I just couldn't remember. I knew what it'd sound like in court. I couldn't tell it that way.
You couldn't tell what?
I didn't kill her. I didn't even touch her. You gotta believe that.
Yeah.
I left the bar with her about 8:15, 8:30. She invited me up to her apartment. She was pretty well gone. Had quite a few drinks.
Mm-hmm.
We got there and had some more to drink, and then Carla got up and started for the kitchen to get some more ice. She tripped, I think, stumbled a little bit, and then she fell down. I think that's the way it was.
All right, go on.
She tried to get up, and then she fell again. Wasn't a bad fall, though. I figured she just passed out. Got some cold towels, ice water. I tried to bring her around. It wasn't any good. She was white as a sheet. I got scared. I didn't know what happened.
What'd you do then?
I don't remember. I just kept trying to bring her around. I don't remember any of it very well. I don't even know why she fell down.
You think you could have hit her, Gables? You think maybe that's why she fell down?
No. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I was mad at her for anything. I think we were having a pretty good time. I just don't remember, that's all. I'm not sure about any of it. Lousy booze, no good at all.
Did you kill her, Gables?
No, Sergeant, I swear it. As far as I can remember, I didn't. We were having a good time. That's all I know. I know I wasn't mad. I'm not a nasty drunk, not as far as I can remember anyway.
What'd you do when you couldn't revive Mrs. Cheswick? You brought her to the hospital?
Yeah, the shape I was in, I couldn't figure anything else to do. I got her in the car, drove her down to Georgia Street. I put her in the elevator, pressed the button, and sent her up. I'm a married man, you know. I didn't want any scandal and didn't want to get involved.
You didn't kill her. Is that what you want us to believe?
I don't know what to tell you. I don't remember. If I killed her, I think I'd know it. I'm sure I would. I just don't remember.
I'll get it.
Okay.
Interrogation room, Friday talking. Yeah, Arthur. That's so. Just a second. All right, I got a pencil now. Go ahead. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Are you sure? How was that? I see. No possibility, huh? Yeah, I see. Okay, Arthur, thanks a lot. Yeah, sure, we'll pick it up later. Right, bye.
Yeah, Jim?
Coroner's report. Just finished the autopsy. It's all right, Gables.
Huh?
It's all right. It's all cleared up.
What do you mean?
Well, you're free to go if you like. We're not going to hold you.
What's the pitch, Joe?
Coroner's report. Primary cause of death was a massive cerebral hemorrhage into the ventricle.
Could have been a blow on the head, couldn't it? You figure that could have done it?
No. Secondary cause was a brain tumor, a big one. Coroner says she's had it for years. It must have caused her a lot of pain. Probably would have accounted for the drinking.
And the tumor brought on the hemorrhage. That's what's killed her.
That's it. Coroner says erosion of the blood vessel by brain tumor. Probably grew, caused pressure on a blood vessel, finally gave way, caused a hemorrhage, and that killed her.
And she just died. I didn't have anything to do with it. She died and I didn't kill her.
Yes, sir, that's right. You're free to go if you want.
Thank God. You know, officers, I'll tell you the truth. I didn't know the answer. I didn't know if I killed her or not. I really didn't. Drinking so much, came to, and there she was dead. I didn't know what happened. I really didn't. I didn't know the answer.
Well, you're one up on us, Gables.
Huh?
We thought we did.
The story you have just heard was true. The names were changed to protect the innocent.
On Thursday, November 10th, the meeting was held in the office of Captain of Homicide. In a moment, the results of that meeting.
And now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you. Friends, there's not much I can add to what George Fenneman and Hal Gibney have already told you about Fatima's. If you smoke them, I know you'll agree with me that Fatima is the best of all king-size cigarettes. If you haven't tried them yet, well, there's only one way to prove it to yourself, and that's to buy a pack and give them a try. I wish you would kind of check up on what we've been telling you. Compare Fatima's with any other king-size cigarette. You'll like Fatima's better flavor and aroma, its extra mild and soothing smoke. In Fatima, the difference is quality. Buy a pack tomorrow. Fatima.
The filing of the official autopsy report by the county coroner, John Gables was cleared of all charges. He was released from custody immediately. The death of Mrs. Carla Cheswick was listed as due to natural causes by the coroner's jury.
Ladies and gentlemen, last year's traffic death toll was 37,500, a 7% increase over 1950. The National Safety Council believes that the best way to promote safety on the road is for each of us to know and obey traffic laws, to read and heed traffic signs. So be careful. The life you save may be your own.
WOR Mutual is proud to present the distinguished American actor Walter Hamden in The Adventures of Leonidas Witherall.
Leonidas Witherall's always getting mixed up in murders.
You wouldn't think so to look at him. He looks exactly like Shakespeare.
It's his beard, and he's proprietor of an important school for boys in New England.
And he writes thriller stories, too, the Lieutenant Hazeltine stories.
And the incidents by which Leonidas manages to get mixed up in crime are strange and unexpected, aren't they, Mr. Hamden?
They certainly are. For instance, at this moment, it's the very pleasant twilight hour in Dalton, and Witherall is at home in his study, reading. Down in the hall, Mrs. Mullet, his good friend and the general housekeeper for the neighborhood, is hard at work when...
I'll answer it, Mr. Witherall.
All right, Mrs. Mullet.
Were you expecting any visitors?
No, not that I know of. Mrs. Mullet, what's happened? Where are you? Mrs. Mullet! Mrs. Mullet! Operator, I want police headquarters. Hurry. Hurry! Mrs. Mullet went to answer the door, Sergeant, and I was sitting in the study. I couldn't see into the foyer. Suddenly, I heard her scream, and when I ran out to look for her, she'd vanished.
Not a sign of her, eh, Bill?
No, and from the way she screamed, I'd say something horrible had happened to her.
She didn't have any enemies, did she?
Oh, she was the friendliest, most harmless woman. Well, she worked for some of the best families in Dalton. That's why I can't understand this.
Well, I've put her on the missing persons list. I've done all the routine things. I can't do anything else.
But don't you see, she didn't just get up and walk off somewhere. She's been kidnapped.
But you say you didn't see anyone. No cars, no strangers, no evidence of any kind. I'd send out every squad car I'd got, but where'll I go?
Oh, you're quite right. I guess I'm not making much sense. All we can do is wait.
Yep, that's it. All we can do is wait.
Hello?
Miss Fidget?
Yes?
This is Leonidas Witherall.
Oh, sure, Bill Shakespeare. How's the beard?
Is Mrs. Mullet at your house?
Well, no. Why?
She disappeared a few hours ago. I've been calling various people in Dalton, hoping they might have seen her.
Well, no, I haven't seen her.
Oh. Sergeant McCobble?
Yes, Bill?
No word yet?
No word yet, Bill.
I'm going to bed, Sergeant. I'm exhausted. But call me the second she turns up, no matter what time it is.
You bet, Bill.
Yes?
Good morning. This is Leonidas.
Oh, hello, Mr. Witherall. No, she's not home yet.
I see. All right. Thank you. Coming. 1 second. Mrs. Mullet. Thank heavens. Are you all right?
Well, I can still stand up.
What's happened to you? I've been frantic. Why, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You've been gone almost 24 hours.
Mr. Witherall, I was kidnapped.
Oh, I thought so. Oh, here, sit down. Would you like some water? You look peaked.
Oh, my face is dirty, isn't it? And my hat. It's not on straight.
Yes. But go on. Tell me the story.
Well, remember when I went to answer the door?
Yes.
Well, I opened the door and I didn't see anyone. So I stuck my head out and presto, someone took hold of my arms and put a blindfold over my eyes.
Did you recognize anyone?
No, it was dark, and it all happened so fast. I'd know their voices, though.
Where did they take you?
Well, I don't know exactly. They made me walk down the street, and we got into a car. Then we went for a ride. Not long, about 10 or 15 minutes, I'd say.
What did they talk about in the car?
Nothing. Not till we got there.
Where?
Some house. I think they took me into the cellar, because from the street we walked down, not upstairs.
Then what happened?
They took my keys. I've got the keys to everybody's house I take care of. Why, I'd more than a dozen of them. Well, they never took the blindfold off. They just took the keys. Then they started to talk about Mr. Twink.
Mr. Twink?
Yes. Yes, I take care of his house. It's on Blackstone Road.
Oh.
Mr. Twink's on vacation. He went to Canada last week, and he left the key to his place with me.
Yes, evidently they wanted to get into Mr. Twink's home. Do you know why?
Well, sure I do. He not only left the key to his front door, he left the key to his safe. Besides, he told me the combination of the little door inside.
Why did he do that?
Well, Mr. Twink has a lot of confidence in me.
Oh, justifiably, yes.
You see, he has a lot of silverware in the safe, and he wanted me to clean them. Then there's some bonds. I had a bit of business to tend to for him.
Of course, your executive ability would help there.
Yes, I had to clip some coupons for him.
It's obvious those men were after all those valuables in the safe.
Oh, they were after the safe, all right. After they had the keys, they asked me to tell them Mr. Twink's combination, but I wouldn't. They tried just about everything they could think of.
But they didn't hurt you, I hope.
Well, they were going to. First, they offered me some money.
Which you spurned.
I wouldn't touch it.
No.
Then they argued with me and argued.
But you were firm?
Like a rock.
Excellent.
Then they went away somewhere, but they came back a few hours later. Fact is, they went away several times. And every time they came back, they asked me about that combination again.
Did they treat you very roughly?
Well, not like in one of those Hazeltine stories you write. But they wouldn't give me anything to eat. And when I got sleepy, they kept waking me up.
Oh.
And they were all set to really hurt me. But I got out.
You escaped? Ingenious.
Mm-hmm. That part was just like in one of your stories. I was tied to the chair, you see. And after a while, it got very quiet. I was sure they'd gone off somewhere. So I did what Hazeltine always does. I wiggled and squirmed. And finally, I got one hand loose. Then I untied the other knots and got the blindfold off.
What did you see?
Nothing. It was pitch black. So I just sneaked up to where I saw some lights coming through a door. And when I got to it, I just ran for all I was worth. I didn't look back for a second. I just ran and ran.
Did you come out of the cellar?
Yes.
Well, did you notice where you were?
Well, I was so tired and dizzy, I just ran around for a while without knowing where I was. I was too frightened to think. And then I fell down.
Oh, my.
Oh, I must have stayed there by the side of the road for a long, long time. When I came to, it was light, so I hurried over here. The road where I fell down was near the highway.
Highway G8, going toward Carnarvon?
Well, I think so. I've never been out that way before.
G8 toward Carnarvon.
Yes, that's it. That's where we'll start.
Start?
Well, aren't we going back there to capture that gang, just like Hazeltine would?
We're certainly not. You and I alone?
Hazeltine captures a gang alone.
Mrs. Mullet, the lieutenant is a fictional character, a product of my imagination.
But, Mr. Witherall...
practically speaking, the possibility of you and me capturing that gang, as you put it, is absurd. Besides, if they're really an organized gang, the chances are very good we'd never live through such an escapade.
Well, if you think I'm going to let those rascals go scot-free after kidnapping me, you're all wrong, Mr. Witherall. I'm going to teach them a lesson if I have to do it myself.
Mrs. Mullet, your intentions, however firm, wouldn't be very convincing in the face of a machine gun.
Now, machine gun or not, I'm going to find out who grabbed me. You come along. You're very smart about these things.
I don't think it'd be a battle of wits. It might be confined to gunplay.
Well, you can stay if you want to. Of course, Hazeltine never just sit there.
Mrs. Mullet, why not let the police handle it? I'll call Sergeant McCobble.
Yes.
This is definitely a problem for the sergeant.
Police headquarters, Sergeant McCobble.
This is Leonidas Witherall, Sergeant. Mrs. Mullet's just come back.
Swell, Bill. I'm glad to hear it. Say, where was she?
She was kidnapped.
She was? Well, who did it?
We don't know. Of course, she has some clues.
Yeah? Well, anything definite?
Well, not too definite, no.
Oh. Well, look, Bill, I was just leaving. There's been a big robbery. Now, you keep Mrs. Mullet at your place, and I'll drop by as soon as I finish this job. How's that?
But, Sergeant.
Sorry, Bill. Can't spare time to talk about it now. See you later.
But I
Bye.
thought... hello. Hello. Oh, he hung up.
Well, the police coming?
Not just yet. Soon.
Soon? You think I'm going to sit here and give those crooks a chance to get away? I'm going right now.
No, wait. You can't go after those men alone.
Well, you can come or not, but here I go.
All right. My car's outside. I'll go along. At least I may be able to keep you from getting yourself killed. Come along. I imagine the only way to locate this house is for you to recall every sound you heard, every small detail you can remember about that automobile ride.
Well, now, let's see. First thing was the bakery.
Bakery?
Yes, we'd been riding along about a minute when I smelled a bakery. Can't mistake it, you know.
Get right in. That's it. Your acquaintance with the shops in town should help. Whose bakery is about a minute's drive?
Well, let me think. Oh, Dougal's. It's the only one that's anywhere near your house.
Then we'll head for Dougal's. What did you notice after that?
Well, there was the bakery, then the tracks. I felt the car going over tracks.
Railroad tracks. We'll drive to Dougal's and then see which way we have to go to cross the tracks.
Fine. Now we're accomplishing something. We'll catch those crooks, Mr. Witherall. Step on it. There's the bakery.
And the tracks are off to the left, up this street. So we'll turn left.
There are the tracks right up ahead there.
Yes. Look at that car coming toward us.
The big black one?
Seems the driver's crazy. The way he's swerving from side to side.
Maybe it's those gangsters. Maybe they want to kill us.
Let go the wheel. Let go the wheel. You all right, Mrs. Mullet? They came within 2 inches of turning us over.
Yes, I was so scared there for a minute. Do you think it was the gangsters?
It's very possible. They may have followed you. They may know we're heading for their hangout.
I'm not turning back either.
You're not? That car wasn't a sufficiently dramatic example of what may happen?
We're going right straight ahead. Now let me think. After the track, there was the water. I heard water.
Much water? A brook?
No, it was louder than that. Sort of a waterfall.
How much time elapsed between the tracks and the water?
Well, I don't know. I'd say another few minutes.
Oh, there's a crossroads up ahead. I wonder which road leads to a waterfall. I don't know of any waterfall in this section. I'll try going right. Sure you heard that?
Positive. Could you go any faster?
Mrs. Mullet, if I'm going to get into a wild gun battle, I'd like to appreciate the beauties of the countryside before I expire.
But they'll get away, Mr. Witherall. They'll be gone before we get there.
Well, I admit I find myself harboring a wish that will prove to be true. I can't remember looking forward to an appointment with less anticipation.
Oh, go on, Mr. Witherall. We'll nab 'em just like in the Hazeltine stories. Hazeltine to the rescue!
Oh, shades of Shakespeare.
Say, Mr. Witherall, you were lucky turning to the right.
Lucky?
Well, sure. There's the little waterfall.
Yes.
After the water, we went to the house. Oh, while I was in the cellar, I heard waxing machines. Oh, I'd know that sound anywhere. They were doing the floors above us. Lots of hustle-bustle going on.
Well, at least after I get shot, I've a beautifully waxed floor to collapse on.
I wonder where that house is.
Well, it must be the one up ahead. There aren't any others around. Well, it couldn't be that house, though. I'm sure it belongs to Mr. Beagle. I heard he'd taken a house out here, a big estate.
Mr. Beagle? Why, I know him. He couldn't have done it.
No, he's one of the most active citizens in Dalton. Charitable, public-spirited.
I know, but I'd still say that's the house that took me to.
It's not possible.
Well, drive a bit closer anyway.
All right. In fact, we can stop here if you wish. Exquisite home, isn't it?
Now, exquisite or not, that's the place. The gang's in there. Now we'll rush over and grab them.
The architect... We'll what?
Grab them.
Oh, don't be so enthusiastic. It's unhealthy. Let's walk over.
Why, say, look at the lights. There's a party going on in there.
There certainly is. A party. Strange. If this is the house.
Well, there's not another one around. We followed the sounds in order.
But why would a party be going on? You know, Mrs. Mullet, this is beginning to intrigue me. You heard them waxing floors. Now there's a party. That makes sense.
Of course.
I'm going in. Suppose you walk down the road to the nearest gasoline station and call Sergeant McCobble. Tell him to come over, just in case you're right.
But it's Mr. Beagle's house. You just gone storming into the party?
Not storming, gently breezing in.
But didn't you say if the gangsters are there, you'd be shot?
I want to know who kidnapped you, Mrs. Mullet. I also want to know why a party should be going on in this house. If this is where you were, yes, I'm going to take the chance. And if I get shot, well, as the gentleman I'm supposed to resemble has written, there's a destiny that shapes our ends, rough hew them how we will.
Now you're talking like Hazeltine.
Ah, thank you, Mrs. Mullet. Now, let's see. Mr. Beagle came to Dalton about a year ago. Wealthy, intelligent, well-liked. It's very puzzling.
Be careful.
Oh, I shall. And you be quick. I may need the sergeant badly.
All right. Bye, Mr. Witherall. Good luck.
Bye.
Yes?
Mr. Beagle?
That's me.
I'm Leonidas Witherall.
Oh, yes. The man who looks like Shakespeare.
Well, I hope I'm on time for all the festivities.
What? What'd you say?
I said I hope I'm not late.
Oh, no, you're not late, no, but,
There's Cornelia Winterbloom.
Hello.
And Susan Daw.
Yeah.
I didn't know we had so many mutual friends, Mr. Beagle.
Oh, didn't you? Makes it very cozy, doesn't it?
Yes, very.
Did you want something? You seem to be looking around.
Thank you. I was just admiring the decor. Splendid. I'd like to see the upstairs section, too, sometime.
You're the curious type, aren't you?
Oh, no, I'm merely interested in decoration, furniture.
Witherall, I didn't invite you.
You didn't? Well, someone did telephone me.
Nobody telephoned you.
Oh, well, perhaps it was a card. Yes, Mrs. Mullet, my housekeeper, brought the card to me with the morning mail. You know Mrs. Mullet?
Yes, I do.
Well, she works for quite a lot of people in town. Works for me and Mr. Twink. Do you know Mr. Twink?
Did you say you wanted to see the rest of the house?
Oh, I don't want to disturb you now with this party going on.
Well, I'll have my friend show you the place. You can start downstairs, in the cellar.
In the cellar?
Yes. You'll be very interested in what I have in the cellar. Louie, Jackie.
What's the matter, boss? What do you want?
I want you to show the house to Mr. Wetherall. Take him down in the cellar first.
I got you. Come on, pal. We're going on a sightseeing tour.
Well, thank you, but perhaps later, eh?
Why don't you play something hot? Let's dance. Oh, yes,
You fellas show Wetherall the cellar now. Come on, Maestro. Play something hot, will you?
And make it good and loud, huh, boys?
Sure, that's a great idea.
Okay, let's go with the roll. With the roll, I said let's go downstairs.
Oh, yes, but later. Oh, Cornelia.
Yes, Leonidas.
Cornelia, may I have this dance?
Why, certainly. But it's hot swing. I've never seen you jitterbug, Leonidas.
I never have, but I'm going to do it now. Excuse me, gentlemen. Come on, Cornelia. As the boys at Meredith say, what is that phrase? Manufacture a rug? Oh, yes. Let's cut a rug.
Leonidas. Oh, Leonidas, where in the world are you dancing to? We're going off the floor.
It's rather crowded here. I thought there'd be more room by that window. It leads to the terrace, I think.
Well, all right. Say, you're doing very well. I never thought Shakespeare could dance this way.
Oh, yes. If we can, just dance toward that French window, I could get out by the terrace.
Get out? What are you talking
May
about?
I cut in, Mrs. Winterbloom?
Oh, why, yes, of course. Do you mind, Leonidas?
Oh, I was enjoying this, so I hate to leave you.
Come with me, Witherall.
Let's go, Mrs. Winterbloom.
Oh, bye, Leonidas.
I'm waiting.
Yes, Louis. Sorry to keep you. You know, I've suddenly lost all interest in going into the cellar.
Get going there anyway. And don't try anything, Toots.
Toots, you embarrass me.
Don't go tossing off a couple of hints about what's cooking here. Because what's in my pocket ain't no water pistol.
Cooking? A pistol?
Leonidas Witherall. My goodness, you rascal. Why didn't you come over and speak to me?
Well, I've been busy, Toots. Susan.
Well, just you come over here to this sofa and sit down and chat with me. Will you pardon us?
Huh?
Pardon us. Come on, Leonidas.
Oh, I'm delighted, Mrs. Trap.
Well, how have you been? I haven't seen you in weeks. Mixed up in any murders lately?
I'm mixed up in one right now. Hopelessly mixed up.
Oh, really? Young man, Louis.
Yeah?
Would you do me a favor and get me some more punch, please?
Me? Okay. Give me the glass, Duchess.
Gimme, Duchess?
Yes. Curious guest, isn't he? Now, Leonidas, tell me all about it. Who's been killed?
No one yet.
No?
But they will be at any moment.
Well, why don't you stop it?
No, I'm afraid I can't.
Oh, Leonidas, you wouldn't be pulling my leg, would you?
Oh, no. On the contrary, I'm talking shoulder to shoulder.
Oh.
Legs, shoulders. If this keeps up, we'll need some ration points.
Oh, how droll of you. Well, who's going to be killed?
I am.
Oh, now I know you're just teasing me.
No, Susan, I'm going to be shot within a few seconds.
You know, that's what I like about you, Leonidas. You've such an extraordinary sense of humor.
Huh?
Yes. Well, who's going to shoot you? Cornelia? Me?
One of Mr. Beagle's friends.
Oh.
Susie, I've got to get out of here. Would you walk toward the front door with me?
Of course. I adore these games. We played murder at a party last week, but we didn't act it out this way. It was a quiz game called Stump It or Lump It.
Yes, the quiz I'm in now might be called Answer It or Drop Dead.
Really? Is Louis in it?
Yes, very much so.
Oh, you know Beagle does get the most exciting ideas for his parties. Well, come on. We'll sneak toward the front door, eh?
Yes, do it very casually, though. Come on.
Uh-huh.
Walk slowly.
Yes.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't seen me.
I see. You'll sneak out, and then we'll all look for you. Is that it?
I'm going to back up against this door and grab the knob.
Mm-hmm.
Smile, Susan. Smile at everyone.
I am. Oh, I am. Isn't this more fun?
I've got the knob in my hand.
Uh-huh.
Now I'll turn it.
Yes.
Easy. Talk.
Yeah?
Talk about something. Or anything at all.
Oh, I see. To distract them, huh? Well, you know, I saw the most darling hat yesterday, Leonidas. I was in New York.
The knob's turned.
I just couldn't resist it. It was...
I'm all set now.
You know, it was one of those little stores on Broadway.
Going somewhere with the roll?
Oh.
Jackie, confound it.
Don't leave now. The party's just getting warmed up.
It's at a fever heat, if you ask me.
Stick around. There's going to be plenty of fireworks.
Oh, that's what I'm afraid of.
Well, Leonidas, he saw you. So I guess the game's spoiled. Call me when you want to start a new one, will you? How about musical chairs? I just love...
Now, you fooled around enough with her all. Now you're going downstairs.
You'll have to make me. I'm not going into the cellar.
Come on, Jackie. Beagle's getting impatient. The door to the cellar's over there with her all.
I'll not budge one step.
Oh, you won't, huh? You want to play rough? Okay, Bud, you asked for it.
All right, turn the lights on, boys. Stay where you are. Oh, yeah, don't try anything either.
What's this all about?
Well, where's Bill Shakespeare? Anybody see Leonidas Witherall?
Don't you see him, Sergeant? There were shots.
I heard the shots, Mrs. Wilton. But I don't see him anywhere, do you?
Why, Leonidas was here just a minute ago.
Oh, well, he might be upstairs. See this stairway? All right, come on.
Goodness. He wasn't playing a game after all.
We'll go upstairs and... Say, wait. Well, if it isn't Louie and Jackie. How are you, boys? You fellas haven't been in town bothering me for a long time. They're probably in this Friscom. Okay.
We didn't do nothing.
Leave me alone. All right, shut up, you two, before I hand you your heads. What'd you do with Bill Shakespeare?
He beat it when the lights went out.
Who turned him out?
I did. We were playing a little game. So what?
Oh, a little game, eh? Carrying those guns? Hold them, boys. Let's go, Mrs. Willett. We're going upstairs.
Sergeant, they're in this, all right. I recognize their voices. Why, they're the two fellas that took me into the car.
Well, the boys will watch them till we get back. Then we'll have a nice, long talk. Come on up.
Yes.
Bill? Hey, Bill. Where are you?
Oh, I just...
You all right?
I hope nothing's happened to him.
Wait, I'll try this door. Nope, nothing doing. Well, we get down the hallway here. He might be down there.
Oh, hurry, Sergeant. They may have shot him.
I don't see Beagle anywhere either. I'll bet he's with Bill. Wait, I'll try this room.
Ah, Sergeant McConnell and Mrs. Mullet. Won't you come in?
You all right, Mr. Witherall?
Oh, a bit winded, that's about all.
Say, Bill, didn't you hear us calling?
Why, only just now, you see, the door was closed, and Mr. Beagle and I were having a very spirited and noisy conversation. Have your friends seen Louie and Jackie?
We got him, Bill. But now tell me, what happened?
Why, there's Mr. Twink's silverware.
Yes, the entire contents of Mr. Twink's safe is there on Mr. Beagle's bed, I believe.
Well...
do you care to explain, Mr. Beagle?
I'm not saying a word. I'm explaining nothing. I don't have to talk here.
I put out the lights, Sergeant, when Louie and Jackie were about to exterminate me.
Mm-hmm.
In the dark, I ducked and ran upstairs. I was sure Mr. Beagle would be planning to leave with his loot.
Why, that's the stuff I've been looking for all day. This is the robbery I was working on before.
Really?
Yeah.
Mr. Beagle wasn't quite the outstanding citizen we thought. After he took the keys from Mrs. Mullet, he gave them to Louie and Jackie. They robbed the safe, while Mr. Beagle was purposely giving a party for some of the best-known people in Dalton. As a perfect excuse for his whereabouts during the robbery. Then Louie and Jackie came back to divide the loot, but unfortunately I suddenly appeared as an uninvited guest.
Oh, so they tried to get rid of you first, eh? I get it. Come on, Beagle, come on.
Relax, will you? Who do you think you're pushing around?
Now, Mr. Beagle, if you'll be so good as to return Mrs. Mullet her keys.
Well, Mr. Witherall, guess we did as well as Hazeltine anyway, didn't we?
Oh, we did just as well, Mrs. Mullet.
Say, what were you doing all the time I was fetching the sergeant?
Dancing to Hot Swing.
To Hot Swing?
Yes, that's mood music for a nervous breakdown.
Oh. Well, as Mr. Mullet used to say when he was alive, give me a nice old-fashioned waltz every time.
Yes, I agree. Let's go, Mrs. Mullet.
Wait a minute, Bill. Where are you going? She's a witness.
Oh, couldn't you spare the witness for just a few minutes, Sergeant?
Spare her? What for?
For a nice old-fashioned waltz. Shall we, Mrs. Mullet?
Why, Mr. Witherall.
This is Jerry Hendiga saying stay tuned for more of these great old radio classics.
If you live in or near New York, or if you plan to visit New York soon, we invite you to attend a broadcast of Leonidas Witherall. Just write a postcard with your name and address and send it to Bill Shakespeare. That's what Leonidas' friends call him. Bill Shakespeare, care of WOR, New York 18. We'll be glad to send tickets free of charge. Remember, to receive free tickets to a Leonidas Witherall program, send a note tonight to Bill Shakespeare, WOR, New York 18. The Adventures of Leonidas Witherall is heard over most of these Mutual stations every Sunday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern Wartime and comes to you from the stage of the WOR Mutual Playhouse in New York. This is Mutual.
Broadway's My Beat, from Times Square to Columbus Circle, the gaudiest, the most violent, the lonesomest mile in the world.
Broadway's My Beat, with Larry Thor as Detective Danny Clover.
The February winds spin, dance, race in the morning avenue, and Broadway lurches in their wake, and hands are frozen to early editions of newspaper, and winter lies against cheek and mouth. And search the headlines for what the winds are taking to die with them. And search memory, too, for January images sworn to remembrance. Ice on masts of freighter bound for the tropics. And further back, deeper in memory, the holiday time and the holiday women. And they dance by now in chill embrace of winter wind. And solace is the corner coffee stand and the donut. And waiting a little way up the street, the time clock. And downtown, the new morning is emergency ward of police hospital, and a wall clock that jerks its hands into the 8 o'clock time, and a man, Dr. Sinsky.
Shock, exposure. For a whole night, the girl lay in an alley and no one to...
Over the phone, you said...
I know what I said, poison. There were symptoms. The lab confirmed my diagnosis just minutes ago.
Pretty.
Yes. Now that Daddy's asleep, her prettiness has returned. Here, Danny. Here's the history on her. Identified from things in her pocketbook as Peggy Warner, age 28.
Where was she found?
A moment, Danny. Alley emptying into 19th Street, back of Tate's Bar and Grill on 3rd Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
A woman came running to Patrolman Carnes on the beat, yelled a drunk girl was sleeping in the alley, and that...
Poison, shock, exposure. What are her chances, Doctor?
What do you want me to say, Danny? I gave her sleep for a little while. To give her back her life? What do you want me to say, Danny?
And outside now. The morning is a wind wall, so adjust yourself to it. One hand in overcoat pocket, one hand on hat, lower the head. Short walk to squad car, and the drive downtown. Crowd going to work time. Rush beneath long triangles of gray and splinters of sunshine. Uncadenced quick step of pedestrian, and blare of the car-borne taking turns according to the green light and the red. Left on 3rd Avenue and cruise for an address. Tate's Bar. Find it. Park. And Tate's Bar is 5 booths, 4 empty, 10 bar stools, half of them occupied. And the bartender flashes his 9 o'clock in the morning smile at you, takes it back at the flash of the badge, assures you his name is Tate, and assures you...
My time is yours.
Just a few questions about last night, Mr. Tate.
Last night was different.
There was a girl lying in the alley out back. Her name was Peggy Warner. Is Miss Warner in the habit of...
Look around you for a minute.
So?
You just bear with me.
Peggy Warner, Mr. Tate.
You just bear with me. We'll come to Peggy. This place of mine, this bar, a convenience. I cater to those who demand their booze. Me, personally, I wouldn't be caught even with my nose to a cork for the aroma.
What's this got to do with
I'm going to tell you why I fired her.
Go on.
So there are those who booze it from early morning on. I cater to this necessity. Notice the place, clean. The jukebox music, adjusted to soft tone level. The customers' voices low. This I demand. Talk becomes above library level. Into the gutter they must go. Now we will consider Peggy.
Thank you.
So you'll understand.
I said thank you.
8 months ago, I got a whim. Hire a barmaid. I approve of women waiting on men. Dames I don't allow in here to drink, but to wait on in uniform and all, I have a whim where this is nice for the self-respect of those who like the bottle. I hired Peggy.
8 months ago.
About that. Then I caught her drinking with a customer. 2 days after she started to work here, I bounced her.
What about last night?
She came back looking for a job. She looked like she just swum her way to the top of a beer crock. Out the back way she did go, on my arm. No job from me to her.
I see. What else can you tell me about her?
8 months ago, when I fired her first... Yeah, maybe you'd like to know about that.
About what?
The customer who she drank with. She merely walked around to his end of the bar, went out with him, hand in hand.
And?
Well, the guy's name was... I'll get it for you. His address, too. I got it around here someplace. But whatever this guy's name was, I saw him the next morning at his house.
Oh?
Yeah. Next morning, I got a messenger with a $10 bill and a note from Peggy. Bring my dress and street shoes around to this address. I did. The man I mentioned opened the door for me, took the bundle, and slammed the door in my face. Sure, I'll get his name and address for you.
Yes? What do you want?
I'm from the police, Danny Clover.
And please be brief. You've chosen a very bad time. A woman's morning is quite crowded enough without...
Charles Blake live here? Charles Blake, I was given this address.
Charles is my husband. Well, do I have to stand out here and discuss it, whatever you...
No, Mrs. Blake.
Well, then let's go inside. I'm chilled to the bone. Here in the hall will do. Just let me warm myself at the register a moment. Ooh. Now, what's this about Charles?
I want to talk to him. Where is he?
In his office, maybe? Out with one of his clients, maybe? What do police have to do with Charles?
A girl was found in an alley early this morning.
There you go again. I've read how you people do things. Make it sound big. Toy with it. Act smart and fresh and knowing.
You'll let me finish, Mrs. Blake?
What alley? What girl? Some girl Charles is supposed to know? Something you found in an alley and right away... What girl?
Peggy Warner, girl your husband...
Oh, Peggy. That one?
Funny, Mrs. Blake?
Just like a girl like that. Where else but in an alley? Strikes me funny I was so right about her. Do you mind?
What else did you feel about her, Mrs. Blake?
That she had a fresh mouth and she was sloppy and lazy and had to be yelled at to make her do things. She was our maid, you know.
I didn't know.
Oh, yes. Charles brought her home one evening and said to me, standing right there, he said, Martha, I've brought you that maid you've always wanted. And Tom, my son. Tom said, you've always wanted one, Mother. Let's try it for a while. And I thought about it and I said, all right, Charles, all right, son, if you both think we need one. And was she drunk when you people found her?
She was poisoned. She's dying.
And I tried it. For 2 weeks, I really tried it, honestly, but I just couldn't bear her anymore. Sloppy and just fresh-mouthed, and we paid her off and dismissed her and... Oh, excuse me. Hello? Yes, Tom. Where are you? Oh, no. No, I don't think so. I'd rather you didn't. Not here. You tell your father... Not now, Tom. You and your father are not to... Now, you listen to me.
Your son, Mrs. Blake?
Just a minute, Tom. Yes, it's my son. Do you mind waiting
And he's with his father?
Why, yes. He's with Charles, and I don't see any need for them to traipse all the way up here from downtown just to...
You're right, Mrs. Blake. As long as they're downtown, just tell them to drop in at headquarters right away. Ask for me. Now, go on, tell him, Mrs. Blake.
Tom? Yes, there's someone with me, a Mr. Clover from the police. He wants you and your father to go to police headquarters right away. Well, I don't know, son. I don't know. I'll tell him. Son? Tom? He hung up.
They'll be there?
Yes. Mr. Clover?
Yes?
That girl. It's all she was, what I told you. It's all she deserves.
Just sit down, gentlemen.
What's this all about? What are my father and I doing in a police station? Pop, I told you...
Take it easy, son. Mr. Clover must have a reason.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Blake?
I'm a tax consultant.
What about you?
I used to help out my father. I'm on my own now.
And he's very good, Mr. Clover.
Look, Mr. Clover, my father and I were on our way home.
Either one of you know a girl named Peggy Warner?
Come now, Mr. Clover. Surely you asked my wife the same question, and surely she told you that Peggy once worked for us.
Tell me about her.
Of course. She worked for us. Maid. She was unsatisfactory as a worker. She was fired.
Who fired her?
I don't remember who fired her, Tom.
What is all this? A maid waved a dust mop around our house.
She was found in an alley, poisoned.
Suicide?
Well, for one thing, she's not dead yet. For another...
I still don't get this at all. We haven't seen Peggy since last summer sometime. July, around then.
That go for you, too, Mr. Blake?
Of course.
Now tell me about how you first met her, Mr. Blake.
How do you know it was I?
About Tate's Bar. Tell me about that.
I'll be glad to. My office was nearby. I stopped in for a quick one at Tate's Bar. Peggy waited on me. I drank to her health. She told me she wished she could drink to mine. I bought her a drink. She drank it. The boss saw her, fired her.
You figured it was your responsibility to take care of her, is that it?
Not to take care of her, to see that she got located again.
Listen, you. My mother had been screaming for a maid, so my father brought her one. Peggy was a lousy maid, that's all. And I'll tell you something else. My mother didn't like the way she took too long to clean up my room. That make you happy?
No sense making up lies, Tom. There's nothing...
Who's lying?
I say. Well, that's about it, Mr. Clover. All we can tell you honestly now. My son and I were having a beer together. My wife is expecting us. She'll worry.
Sure, go home. If I need you, you'll be there, won't you?
Of course, but why should you need us anymore?
Let's get out of here, Pop.
And son walks away from it. Opens door for father. Grins.
You want to make a production out of it, Pop? Let's get out of here. Come on, Pop. The man said... Pop, you listening?
For a little while longer, the father sits in silence, then rises, walks past the boy, into corridor, without waiting, without a word to him. And boy winks at me and closes door. And through window, morning drifts the streets, and chill is grayer now. And over a doorway, neon sparks, sputters, flows in twisted tube. A man looks up, enters, and brief flurry of wind people on Winter Street.
Danny? Danny?
Come on in, Doctor.
I've just come up from emergency ward checking my patients. That girl this morning.
Peggy Warner?
Yeah, her too.
Well, what about her, Doctor?
This about her. The question you asked of me this morning?
What question?
You said, what chances, Doctor? I didn't have an answer for you then. Now I have. Now there's nothing to ask anymore. She's dead. Peggy Warner is dead. When you look through your window, what do you see, Danny? Tell me about it.
You are listening to Broadway's My Beat, written by Morton Fine and David Friedkin, and starring Larry Thor as Detective Danny Clover. You've heard about the devastation spread in Holland by the hurricane. No doubt it touched your heart, in common with all Americans. And if you've been wondering what you can do to help these brave people in their hour of desperate need, please listen. The State Department and the Executive Office of the President suggest that you send immediately a check to CARE, C-A-R-E, CARE, New York. Holland's greatest need is for blankets. CARE can send more, faster, with your dollars. To relieve an immediate pressing need, make your relief money for Holland go farthest by sending your check to CARE, New York.
When it begins, when the February part of winter comes around, there's a kind of joy on Broadway. The time is starting to end. Peek under the calendar page and know that spring will come again, and the smile you make makes a little warm inside. But there'll be the winter things to remember. The evenings just as nighttime drifted in, when lights danced their patterns just for you, and later when you made the stars do things just for her. And Winter Park, snow in black tumbled hair, and Hudson dawn, fingers against cool curve of cheek and laughter. It's starting to end, but there's still time. Run after it. Hurry. And the rush of new morning at police headquarters, the way it happens always, but with minor variations according to the vagaries of Sergeant Gino Tartaglia.
Money.
Gino?
Take a handful of peanuts, Danny, and sing along. Go ahead, take.
Thanks, Gino. I'll save them for later.
I saw Mrs. Tartaglia put them in my lunchbox, and I couldn't wait. And 3 peanut butter sandwiches.
Like peanuts, huh? What's the matter?
What a question. It's like asking a fellow if he likes gherkins.
What?
A question.
Gino, do you have anything for me?
Indeed I do.
Will you let me have it, please?
Some questions. Like asking a fellow...
So help me, Gino.
Very well, Danny. A check into the background of Miss Peggy Warner, deceased. Nothing on the blotter at records. So far as we can tell, Miss Warner was a law-abiding citizen. However...
However what?
A hurry-up wire to Baltimore, to the Social Security office, and a relay to the folk down there of Miss Warner's Social Security number taken from her effects revealed the following.
Go on.
Miss Warner was a bad employment risk for some reason or another. A list of places where she worked for the last 8 months is this long. Here, Danny, you can see for yourself. After the bar job, she was employed as a waitress in the village tea shop. Then as an elevator operator at a fancy dress shop on Park.
Gino.
Yes, Danny?
I can read.
Oh.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Gino. You were good today. Very good. Tell Mrs. Tartaglia.
There'll be a very small wait for a table, sir, so if you'll just give me your name.
Danny Clover.
Danny Clover, with 1 L, of course. You see? There you are in big block letters on my pad, right under Mrs. Trafer and party of 3. And if you'll nuzzle among those others on the bench, we'll have you teed and fed in just the smallest time.
I'm not eating.
Then we'll put you with someone who is. And if you're fortunate, you'll get a fat one who's dieting, and you can have her blue plate dessert with your tea.
I'm from the police.
You're police?
It's about Peggy Warner, a girl who used to work here.
That one.
Mm-hmm.
But she died today. It's all over the noon editions. A little while ago, I had a midday snack over it in the kitchen with the salad boy.
Look...
An August girl, that one. And you know August girls.
No, tell me.
You don't know? How odd. Like this they are. They blow in with the August wind, always at evening. Ask for a job or given it, and first thing you know, the season hits them. And there's nothing to do but sack them, fire them, give them the boot, the old heave-ho.
Weather affects their work?
You really don't know, do you? This, Peggy, this August thing, was doing very well on table. So well, in fact, I put her on tea leaves.
Huh?
Fortunes, of course. The extra charge is minute, and the men seemed to like it when it was Peggy at the leaves. But when she made their futures all come true, went out with them on the side, dated them at odd hours, what else is a person to do, I ask?
The heave-ho, huh?
Your compassion is so welcome. Oh, pardon. Mrs. Trafer, we're ready for you. That table near the fireplace.
Peggy Warner, is that the name?
That's right. She worked here in this dress shop, didn't she?
Why? What about her?
What about her is that she's dead. Why is because I'm a policeman and I'm asking.
Miss Warner worked here. She ran the elevator. I was floor manager in the college shop at the time. I remember her.
I'm glad you do, because I want you to tell me about her.
There are only 3 floors here. There's not much to tell.
She lasted 3 weeks here, Mr. Austin. How come such a short time?
She's dead.
That's right.
And there's an investigation.
That's right.
Murder?
We're pretty sure of it.
I see. She nearly cost me my job. That's why I signed the complaint slip against her for personnel. It was on my account she was discharged.
I know. That's why the manager of this place sent me to you for a fuller explanation.
Sometimes cheapness attracts a man, I'm sorry to say.
You?
I took her out a few times, 3 beers and a second-run movie each time. And goodbyes each time, not good night. I didn't like myself.
So you had her fired?
I couldn't stand her around. I'm thinking of marrying a lovely girl who... Well, I had to get rid of Peggy. I did. Now she's dead. Now I can stop looking for her.
And leave him. And 2 other places where a girl, now dead, had worked, had been fired, had made other brief impressions. Usherette in a theater on West 125th Street. Handled uniform and flashlight real clever until one day showed an early matinee movie lover to a loge seat. Sat down in the empty one next to him right through second feature, newsreel, animated cartoon. Candy intermission also while the lights were up. Also laughed loud through very sad passages. Fired. Turned in flashlight and uniform. And a 5 and dime on East 26th Street. Lawn changed several men customers till one day she did it to lady store detective. Laughed right in her face. Fired. And the home insulating firm where Peggy Warner had been hired as house-to-house canvasser had made a house call. After an hour, phoned the home office, said she thought she needed a vacation. Our canvassers work on a volume basis. Fired. The life work, the employment rundown on Peggy Warner. And forget the rest of the list. Go back to headquarters. And a man in your office waiting for you.
You been hustling, Danny?
Gino said you've been waiting. He said Detective Muggavan had something for me. You got something, Muggavan?
I've been making a routine rundown on Charles Blake. Figure maybe I could save you some legwork.
Oh, tell me.
Charles Blake, you remember, the big-hearted fellow meets a girl, buys her a drink, gives her a job in his own home, a maid for the wife and kid.
I remember. What about him?
Well, Charles has been separated from his wife 6 months now. A stunner, huh?
Go on.
He hasn't lived in his home. Kindly folk, neighbors, clients, very glad to cooperate with you boys of the police department, that type. They told me. Told me other things.
And you'll tell me, huh?
It's what I knew you'd ask, Danny. Yeah. They told me how Charlie Blake didn't deserve a nice home like this, a nice wife, how Charlie was a chaser, also a hunter.
All right, he hasn't been in his home for 6 months. You find out where he has been?
You got that list Tartaglia gave you? Places where Peggy Warner worked?
Yeah?
Give it to
Oh,
me.
look, Muggavan, I've been through the list.
Oh, just give it to me, huh? Thanks. Now, come over here to the wall map, Danny, a map of the city. I'm encircling some spots on it while I waited. Here.
Now, what about it?
Places where Charles Blake has opened a tax consultant office in the last 6 months. Sometimes with living quarters, sometimes a rented room right in the neighborhood. A wanderer, huh, Danny?
Yeah.
Now check these against the addresses of places where Peggy Warner worked. Here, West 125th Street. Charlie's office here. This one, Mrs. Teamy's Tea Shop. Charlie here. Bank Street in the Village. Charlie's office on Bank. This one.
Get a squad car, huh, Muggavan?
That's why I waited, Danny, so you'd tell me to do that.
What do you want here, Clover?
Talk. Let's go inside.
You're busting up a family evening. Why don't you come back some other time?
Tom?
Okay, we go inside.
Who... Oh. Hello, Mr. Clover.
Good evening.
Something you want, Mr. Clover?
Where's your husband?
Pop? What do you want with Pop?
Where is he?
Mother.
Get him.
He's upstairs.
Still about that girl, Mr. Clover?
That's right.
I don't understand what gives you the right to come here, into our home, order people to do things
Mrs. Blake, you're an intelligent woman. This has got murder in it. It's not a matter of ordering people. It's a matter of getting things done. Right now, all that has to be done is to talk to you and your husband and your son.
And then what?
We'll know who killed Peggy Warner.
I'll tell you something, Mr. Clover. I'm beginning to get the impression that you're a ridiculous man.
What do you want, Clover?
I'm sure your son just told you. It's still about Peggy.
Oh, he's hinting, Charles. Hinting around that you, me, Tom, one of us had something to do with that girl's death.
How does it feel to be back home, Mr. Blake?
Tell him.
It feels... I'll tell you how it feels.
Look, Pop.
Leave your father alone.
I just want him to watch out what he's saying, that's all.
I'm glad I'm home, Clover, that's all.
And I'm glad he's home.
What about you, Tom?
You kidding? He's my father.
Is it just a coincidence that your father came home after the paper screamed a girl named Peggy Warner was found dying in an alley?
You've been nosing around, haven't you?
Which one of you poisoned her? All right, then we'll go on. You brought Peggy into your house, Mr. Blake. Then she was discharged. Then you kept following. Set up your place of business close by her. Wherever she went,
All right. Listen.
What?
It happens, that's all. So it happened to my father.
But you threw him out of the house when it happened, didn't you, Mrs. Blake?
He's back now. It's over. The girl is dead. My husband suffered. I suffered, and my son. We'll be a stronger family for it.
Did you kill her, Mrs. Blake? Tom? Mr. Blake?
What makes you so sure one of us killed her?
You, because you couldn't get her out of your blood. She wrecked your family. She was wrecking your life. Tom?
All right. She was... You know what kind of a girl she was. I knew. I knew the second day she was in.
Shut up!
Oh, sure, Pop. Go get angry. That's an emotion, too. You can have it. Sure, I had a motive for killing Peggy. What she was doing to you.
Your motive, too, Mrs. Blake.
Yes.
Tom.
Yeah?
Whose idea was it for your father to come home?
What difference does it make?
It's important that...
You killed her, Tom.
Listen, Pop.
What'd you have to kill her for? All right, she was what you said she was. But you don't know. You don't know.
Let me tell you something, father of mine. I know plenty. I know when a man makes a fool out of himself. I've seen fools, but you... Oh!
My two men. Father, son. Charles.
I'm sorry I hit you, son.
It's okay.
Charles, I'm trying to tell you something.
I'm sorry about everything, Martha.
I know. I'm sorry, too. Now, pay attention to me, both of you. I killed that girl.
Martha.
I followed you and found out where she lived. Then I went there night before last, and I brought a bottle with me. Heart-to-heart talk with whiskey. And it was poisoned whiskey. I killed her. Then I told Tom it was all right to bring you home. Why don't you slap him again, Charles? Hit your son, or me, for what you've done to us.
We'd better go, Mrs. Blake.
One more minute, Mr. Clover. I deserve that. I'm a woman who's kept a family together. Charles.
What?
I spoke with her first. She laughed at you. Live with that, Charles.
In the minutes before dawn, Broadway lies huddled in a dreamless sleep. It's the time of no stars and the silent wind. But walk the streets, take the slow walk, and listen. It's there. It's always there. The sound of weeping. And you know that nighttime will never leave. It's Broadway, the gaudiest, the most violent, the lonesomest mile in the world. Broadway. My beat.
Broadway's My Beat stars Larry Thor as Detective Danny Clover, with Charles Calvert as Tartaglia and Jack Crucian as Muggavan. The program is produced and directed by Elliott Lewis, with music composed and conducted by Alexander Courage. In tonight's story, Irene Tedrow was heard as Martha, Herb Butterfield as Charles, and Sam Edwards as Tom. Featured in the cast were Marvin Miller and Peggy Weber. Bill Anders speaking. A tiny island paradise off the African coast, covered with colored tropical fruit and vegetation, inhabited by brilliantly plumed tropical birds, becomes a scene of fear and violence in tonight's episode of Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle. A man, his wife, and the son they dote on are enveloped by strange events indeed, until Tarzan decides to investigate. Don't miss Tarzan on most of these same CBS radio stations. Stay tuned now for the Vaughn Monroe Show, which follows immediately over most of these same stations. And remember, where there's Gunsmoke, there's Western Adventures, Saturday nights on the CBS Radio Network.
After all, if you were married to a private detective, would you let him take a case involving a dangerously beautiful woman who wants a divorce?
The National Broadcasting Company presents The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Mandel Kramer as Pat and Jean Abbott, those popular characters of detective fiction created by Francis Crane. NBC invites you to join Pat and Jean each week at this time for an exciting recorded adventure in romance and crime. Now here is Claudia Morgan as Jean Abbott to set the stage for tonight's puzzle in murder.
Along San Francisco's amazing, twisted, angular streets, many weird characters come marching into my husband, Pat Abbott's office. Some of them march, that is. Others kind of slide in as though they were hiding from something. The beefy gentleman who came to Pat's office this time was Walter Phillips. Phillips marched in, all right. Very cold, very sure of himself.
Well, Mr. Abbott, you've been trailing my wife?
Yes, Mr. Phillips.
You found grounds for divorce?
She's an exquisite woman, Mr. Phillips. Those green eyes. Murder.
Suppose we dispense with the irrelevancies. You took this case
I took it reluctantly. You see, divorce cases are a bit messy for my taste, but the fee... Well, income taxes hit me hard.
You're stalling, Abbott. Now, what's on your mind?
I'm stalling because I don't relish these things. I've been half tempted to return your fee and skip the case.
And what have you decided?
Well, my wife wants a new fur coat for next fall, so she decided.
Well, tell me what you know, then.
Your wife's been seeing some man.
Well, I could have told you that. Is that what you demand the big fee to tell me?
Do you know who the man is?
Well, who is he?
You've heard of the gambler, Julian Stewart?
You mean...
That's it.
You're not only lazy and insolent and reluctant to take the case, you're lying.
I have all the details right here. The times, dates, addresses, nightclubs, theater tickets. You want to see the file?
Yes.
It is. The little romance has been going on for about 3 months.
Well, I find it difficult to believe.
Perhaps. Now, last week, your wife...
My wife went to Los Angeles to see her mother last week.
That's very touching. You want to know the facts? Take a look at this.
Well, where did you get this picture?
That was taken last Saturday at the Santa Anita racetrack.
Well, it's Rita, all right.
And the man with her?
I've done you an injustice, Mr. Abbott. It is Julian Stewart.
You satisfied now?
Perfectly.
Good. Now, if you'll sign a complaint, I'll arrange for an attorney to have her served within the next few hours.
You're being a bit hasty, Mr. Abbott. I'm afraid I shall have to ask you to desist.
I don't understand. You came to my office recently in a state of rage. You were incredibly upset. You hired me to get evidence.
When I married Rita, I vowed to love and to cherish her till death do us part.
I'm afraid you'll have a long wait, Mr. Phillips. Unless somebody hurries up her death.
Yes. Unless that happens, Mr. Abbott.
Mr. Phillips, if you've the remotest notion of revenge, of doing away with your wife, I would warn you now to dismiss it from your mind. Even if the notion is just that and no more, get rid of it. You're a well-known, very successful, intelligent man, full of self-confidence. You'd probably think you could get away with it. That kind of self-confidence will destroy you.
Perhaps, Mr. Abbott, perhaps. Good day, sir. You'll hear from me.
Good day, Mr. Phillips. Gene, come in.
Oh, Pat, he looked very distracted.
He should be, darling. His wife's two-timing him.
He getting the divorce?
He doesn't want it now.
Got good grounds?
Well, that depends. What's good grounds?
Oh, many things. Like a wife whose husband's so busy being a private detective, he never romances her anymore.
Well, come here. I'll fix that.
I like San Francisco better than Reno anyway. At the Abbott's household, everything was very smooth. At the Phillips palatial mansion outside San Francisco, it was very rough. Walter Phillips had gone from Pat's office directly to his wife's luxurious bedroom.
Walter, darling, I didn't think you'd be home this early.
Well, I felt I'd been neglecting you, sweetheart. Well, haven't I, Rita?
No.
It's awfully nice of you to take that attitude, Rita. But let's face it, I haven't given you 1/10 of the attention you deserve. However, from now on, things are going to be different.
Are they?
You won't have to visit your mother in Los Angeles for lack of something better to do. Oh, incidentally, how is your mother? I've neglected to ask.
Oh, why, she's just fine, Walter.
Well, that's nice. How did she like the races?
The races?
Santa Anita.
I wasn't there.
Funny. I ran into one of my friends today, and he was positive he saw you at the track.
Oh, well, one day Mother was busy, so I did go to Santa Anita.
You never mentioned it to me.
I didn't think you'd care.
But, Rita, everything you do interests me. Incidentally, when do you hear from Julian Stewart?
Julian?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen him in weeks.
Really, darling?
Yes, the last time I saw him was 3 or 4 weeks ago. You remember, we were all at the 84 Club.
You haven't seen him since?
No.
You're lying, sweetheart.
Now, listen, Walter.
If there's one thing I detest, it's a liar. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't hurt you. My nerves. I'm rather tense and anxious these days.
Get out of this room, Walter.
But I said I was sorry. I must have lost my head. As you know, Rita, if you're not careful, you may lose yours, darling.
Rita, of course, was lying right in her pretty teeth. She underestimated Walter. After the little quiz program with her husband, she dashed off to see Julian Stewart. It was an out-of-the-way place, and Julian Stewart had purposely selected a dark corner.
What happened, Rita?
Julian, it's awful.
Oh, don't spoil those gorgeous eyes with tears, Rita. I said, what happened? What happened, Rita?
My arm, you're hitting me.
It isn't the first time you were hurt today, is it?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Why are you wearing that veil over your face?
No, don't, Julian.
Ah, quite a shiner. Who did it? Answer me.
Walter.
Why?
He knows about us.
Who told him?
I don't know. Julian, I'm going to get a divorce.
Don't be ridiculous.
But you said...
I said a lot of things. The fact remains your husband's a very rich man. If you divorce him, where do you think you'd wind up?
We'll get by.
Oh, you don't know me very well, do you, baby? I don't want to just get by. There's no fun in that.
But what can we do?
Suppose Walter was to have an accident.
You're not serious.
Now listen to me, honey. You don't have to starve the rest of your life. Not when you can have everything in the world, all for your very own.
I don't want to hear any more about it.
You shouldn't divorce him. You'd be a sap. But he's very much in the way, isn't he? And if he dies, under what looks like very legitimate circumstances, you collect, no?
You're crazy.
Am I? Think a minute. I'm telling you, Rita, it's a snap. Nobody'd suspect a thing. Now listen. Walter keeps a lot of heavy cash in the house, doesn't he?
Yes.
Then what could be more natural than for a burglar to pay him a visit?
Julian, please.
Now, look.
Julian,
Then they won't work for 3 or 4 hours, but once he falls asleep, he's good for the night. And as soon as he goes off, you start tearing the house apart. When you finish...
Yes?
Use this.
No.
All you have to do is pull the trigger once, your troubles are over then.
Stupid. We'll be caught. We'll hang for it. We won't enjoy one more sane and happy and normal minute together.
But he won't even know what hit him.
I positively won't do it.
Okay, baby. If that's how you feel.
Where are you going?
I'm leaving. Obviously, I don't mean anything to you.
That isn't true, Julian. I'd do anything in the world for you.
Then prove it.
All right. Give me the gun.
Hi, Rita.
Carl.
In person. Well, haven't you got a kiss for your ever-loving brother?
Carl, what are you doing here?
I thought I'd run over from San Diego and pay you a visit.
Why didn't you let me know?
I wanted to surprise you.
But tonight of all nights,
But what's wrong with tonight? You can put me up for the evening, can't you?
No. You'll have to go to a hotel.
In this 20-room mansion? I don't get it. Oh. You and Walter having trouble again?
Don't talk like an idiot.
Well, why are you so nervous?
Oh, because you pop in here like this was a boarding house or a motel. How do you know I didn't make other plans for the night?
Okay, I'm sorry. Now, calm down. It isn't that important.
I'm upset, Carl. Have you got a cigarette?
No, I'm just fresh out.
Oh, there's a pack in my bag.
This one?
Never mind, I'll get it.
All right, I've already got it. You gals carry messes.
Give me that bag.
Rita, what were you going to do with
I said
this?
give me that bag.
Whose gun is this?
None of your business.
Well, I think it is. What were you doing with this gun?
I told you it's none of your business.
All right, but you can't stop me from guessing. Now, let me tell you one thing, my fine, high-class, reputable sister. You're a very beautiful woman. Irresistible to most men, I guess, and very clever. But you'll never get away with murder, Rita. Practically nobody ever does. You're smart, so just keep remembering. The odds are all stacked against you.
Hello.
Julian, this is Rita.
What's up, honey?
We can't do it tonight.
Why not?
My brother, Carl, came to town. He knows everything.
What?
I couldn't help it. I forgot myself for a moment. He found the gun, Julian.
So what? I've got another. Now, look, Rita. You made up your mind. It's tonight or never.
But with Carl in the house, it isn't safe.
Oh, forget it. Go to sleep. When you wake up, it'll be all over.
What are you going to do?
Never mind what I'm going to do. Forget it. Don't worry about it. What you don't know will never hurt you. Just leave it to Julian.
All right, Gene, I've got an hour. Let's have that lunch.
Darling, as usual, lunch with your wife will have to be skipped.
Hmm?
There's a man outside to see you. Saw him as I came in.
Oh, who is it?
Says his name is Carl Rainey.
Well, send him in and read a magazine in the anteroom, darling. I won't be long.
Last time you said that, I didn't see you for 2 months.
I swear.
All right. On one condition, though. You must tell me what Rainey wants.
Darling, a private detective who has ethics does not tell his
Most
wife...
private detectives don't have such trusting, loyal, intelligent...
talkative, time-wasting wives. Now get out and send him in.
Fresh. Step in, Mr. Rainey.
Thank you.
Well, what can I do for you, Mr. Rainey?
I'd like to know how to go about having a person legally committed.
Well, that's easy. You go to a lawyer, not a detective.
I want someone committed to an insane asylum.
Well, then you also need a psychiatrist to examine whoever this is.
Well, you see, my sister, she's the one.
I'm very sorry. The case doesn't seem to concern a private detective. You're in the wrong office. You want me to recommend a good attorney?
I just don't know what I really want, I guess. You see, my sister Rita Phillips.
No detective is qualified. Rita Phillips?
Mm-hmm.
Well, sit right down again, chum. Your brother-in-law came to see me just this morning.
What did he want?
Well, we can skip that. That would be divulging a client's conversation.
But would you help me?
Probably not. The whole pitch you've made doesn't sound legit to me. I don't like clients with phony angles.
Look, I'm leveling, Mr. Abbott. You've got to believe me.
All right, go ahead. Let's try it on for size.
I missed lunch with Pat, of course. He went breezing out with Carl Rainey, and I dined alone. Pat was obviously getting deeper into a case he had little relish for. Maybe dangerously deep.
Now, look, Rainey, we've been driving around for over an hour. Where are we going?
I'm taking you to my sister's house.
You told me that, but where does she live? Mexico City?
Oh, now listen, Abbott.
No, you try doing a little listening, just for a change. You know, this ride hasn't been a total loss. I've been doing a little thinking.
Have you?
Mm-hmm. Your sister is playing around with a man named Julian Stewart.
That's a lie.
Now, you know better. So you must have come to my office for only one reason. You want to establish the fact that she's not responsible in case anything should happen.
What are you talking about?
Well, let's assume, just for the sake of argument, that your sister commits a murder. I guess I hit the jackpot, hmm? What are you stopping here for?
I want to hear every word of this. Go on, Abbott. You were saying?
I was saying merely that if your sister Rita murdered someone, it would be awfully helpful if you could prove that you had consulted a responsible person before having her committed to an insane asylum. A jury, in that case, might never find her guilty of murder in the first degree.
Hmm?
There'd be considerable question about her sanity. That casts extreme doubt on convicting her. She did not know, as they say in legal psychiatry, the nature and quality of her act. That gets us into the intriguing area of lunacy and homicide.
And that's quite a clever theory, Abbott.
It's more than just that, Rainey. It's your gimmick. And it's in operation.
Suppose it is. What do you propose to do about it?
Give the victim ample notice.
I thought I understood an ethical private detective's dealings with his clients are confidential.
Not in this case. You don't sit idly by and watch a man get killed. Suppose you were a psychiatrist. A man comes to you and swears he's going to commit murder. Very convincingly. You going to keep quiet about it? I hardly think so. You'd warn the victim. There's a point where ethics becomes impractical, no?
Just a second. Stay in the car. Where do you think you're going?
Put away that gun, Rainey. That won't stop me.
I said, where are you going?
I'm going to call your brother-in-law, Mr. Walter Phillips, out of common, ordinary decency, and tell him that somebody's planning to kill him.
Okay, so the gun won't work. Maybe something else will. It usually does. How about 1,000, Abbott?
Are you kidding?
3,000, cash. We'll go to my apartment. Get it now.
I'm not for sale, chum. You tried the wrong gambit again.
You're a tough customer. I'm afraid nothing will help me except maybe... pleasant dreams, Mr. Abbott.
All right, Pat. Take a swig of this.
No. That's enough.
Oh, go on, darling. It won't hurt you.
Where am I, Jean?
On a cot, dear. In the police station.
Police? How'd I get here?
Prowl car picked you up in the park around 2 this morning.
Oh, my head.
Yes, your head's right. The doctor worked quite a while on that noggin of yours. What happened, Pat?
Rainey threw me a curve.
Carl Rainey?
Mm-hmm. Darling, remember when he came to my office and we had to skip eating together?
He a client? You make a deal with it?
Well, sort of.
Well, you better get a new lead on this case.
Why?
He stayed at his sister's house last night. A burglar walked in and...
Yes? What'd the burglar do?
He blew Carl Rainey's brains out.
Well?
Are you Julian Stewart?
Who wants to know?
I do.
Who are you?
I'm a private detective. The name's Pat Abbott.
I don't remember inviting you over.
Well, I have an irritating habit of showing up without an invitation.
Never mind the gags, Abbott.
Please, you'll have to be gentle with me. My head hurts.
What's in your mind, Abbott?
A man named Carl Rainey retained me to have his sister, Rita Phillips, committed to an insane asylum.
He what?
You heard me. He was afraid she'd commit murder.
He's a screwball kid. He was just fooling.
If he was, pal, the joke's on him. He was just murdered.
Why did you come here?
Well, it occurred to me that the killer might have mistaken him for Rita's husband, Walter Phillips. They were both approximately the same size, and Rainey was killed at his brother-in-law's house.
What does Phillips say?
I haven't had a chance to talk to him as yet. First, though, I want to know why you were gunning for him.
Look, friend, why don't you be as smart as you like people to think you are? Why don't you keep your nose clean? Shut up and go back to your 2-bit office and find some lost dogs and pocketbooks.
I like this much better.
Well, you won't like it much here if you stick around. Now get out.
Okay, Mr. Stewart. I may be back, though.
Gee, I don't know if I can wait.
You try gags, too, don't you?
And next time, give me a little notice. You look like such good company, I might want you to meet some of my friends.
Hello?
Rita, this is Julian.
What do you want?
Was a Pat Abbott over to see you?
No.
He probably will be. Now, we gotta get together before it happens.
Why?
But don't be stupid, so we can cook up a story.
I don't want to see you, Julian.
That's funny. You never felt that way before?
I do now. You murdered my brother.
Shut up!
You killed Carl.
Now listen, I'll be over to see you in 20 minutes. And if you know what's good for you, you'll be waiting.
Pat, what are you going to see Mrs. Phillips for? The police have already talked to her.
My hunch, Jean, is that she knows more about this murder than she's let on. Rainey's death was probably an accident. The intended victim was Walter Phillips.
You think this is another Snyder Gray case?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Are the police protecting Phillips?
He's on his way to Chicago to attend a directors' meeting. Took the train at 4:30.
Well, how do you know?
Got it from his secretary. And if that's not enough, I also talked to the red cap who put him on the train.
Is this the house?
Mm-hmm. Careful now.
Do you think she'll talk to you alone?
She'd better.
She will. You're the persuasive type.
When my wife's with me, I'm persuasive.
That's why she's with you. There are all kinds of persuasion a man can use in a woman, and some of them I don't like. Oh, darling, maybe we're wasting time. Doesn't seem to be anybody home.
Okay, then. I'll have to open the door.
With what?
I got keys.
How?
Oh, I got ways, too. Locksmiths in the neighborhood. Servants. Here we go.
Pat, this is housebreaking.
Oh, I'm on police business, my dear girl. I'm trying to solve one murder and stop another one. Man's life is at stake. Here we are. This one does it.
Oh. Lovely home. Pat, look.
Where?
End of the foyer. Is that Rita Phillips on the floor?
Yes, it is.
Oh, what's wrong with her?
It's the late Rita Phillips, Jean. She's dead.
Did you call the police?
Yes, they're coming right over. I want a closer look at Rita. Mm-hmm. She was obviously beaten to death. The killer's weapon smashed that watch she had on, you see?
Yes, it stopped at exactly 4:30.
We're in this deep, sweetheart. I wish somebody else had found this body.
Why?
Because we're not impartial witnesses anymore. We're mixed up in it, but good.
Pat, where are you going?
The prowl car will be here in a second. You wait out front for them and tell them what happened. I'm going over to see Julian Stewart. There might never be a better time.
Yes?
Hello, Mr. Stewart. I said I might be back.
And I said I didn't want you back. I threw you out once. Do I have to do it again?
Where were you at 4:30 this afternoon?
Why?
That happens to be the time Rita Phillips was murdered.
Are you kidding?
I don't waste time playing games, Mr. Stewart. Didn't you know she'd been killed? Better answer that door first.
Come in.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Walter Phillips.
What are you doing here, Abbott? This is most inopportune.
That's a masterpiece of understatement, Phillips. Your secretary told me you were on your way to Chicago. Also, I spoke to a red cap.
Yes, I was on the train, but I got off after a few stops. I suddenly remembered that I had unfinished business here.
Mm-hmm. Shall I guess what it was?
Can you?
Sure. You were going to kill Mr. Stewart here.
You're quite right. Now tell me, in your expert opinion, would a jury convict me?
You're crazy.
I don't think so, Stewart. Especially when I'm sure Rita will give evidence in my behalf.
Now you're wrong. Your wife won't testify.
I know her better, my friend.
Yes, but obviously you haven't seen her lately. She's been murdered.
What? Rita's been... Oh, no.
Yes, it's true. I'm sorry. I just came from your apartment.
You're lying.
I hardly think so.
Who did it?
I was just going to ask Mr. Stewart about that, but suppose we ask you first.
Me? Why?
Because you're the most obvious suspect. Your wife was playing you for a chump. And a man like you would never take that lying down.
That's a ridiculous assumption. It would never hold water.
Well, then you shouldn't mind supplying all the evidence for the alibi, should you?
At 4:30 this afternoon, I was in the dining car aboard train 707. Now, if you'll permit me...
Oh, why? Give me that gun.
Certainly, Mr. Abbott. There you are. Oh, don't waste time examining Julian Stewart. I'm an excellent shot. I shan't fight you at all, as you can see. I handed you my gun. Any jury will agree I had ample justification to kill him.
Surely.
And I will go scot-free.
Maybe. There's just two other items. You also killed your wife and Carl Rainey.
What?
In those instances, Mr. Phillips, the jury will believe me, not you.
Okay, Pat, start bragging.
I never brag, darling. Imagine after all I did for Walter Phillips, he goes on a maniac murder hunt.
Well, tell me why he killed Carl Rainey.
Well, that's easy. That was to frame Julian Stewart. You see, Rainey and Phillips were about the same size. When Rainey was murdered, it looked like an attempt by Stewart that had boomeranged. Only the police couldn't make it stick. So, being a man with purpose, Phillips then went on to murder number two.
His wife?
Mm-hmm. His wife. A lovely, green-eyed would-be divorcee. Oh, she was really...
Yes, darling. Well, never mind what she was. Just explain the case, you wolf.
Well, you see, the police couldn't help but believe then that Stewart had killed Carl Rainey by accident. And then done away with Rita to shut her mouth.
Yes, Pat, but Well, what put you on the right track?
Well, Phillips pretended the murder of his wife was news to him. Yet, without ever being told when she died, he was ready with his alibi for the exact time.
I see, but didn't she die at 4:30? No?
No, of course not. Phillips killed her around 2. Then he set the hands of her watch ahead.
Oh, darling, nice going.
You understand it all now?
Yes, I understand everything but one part of it.
Oh, and that was?
Those green eyes of hers. Pat,
Hmm?
did they really flip you more than mine?
Well,
Or is your wife just a worn piece of merchandise lying on a shelf somewhere?
Oh, that reminds me.
Reminds you of what?
Come here. Closer, much closer. That's better.
Oh, tired stock, that's what I am. Property you take for granted. Pat,
Hmm?
why are you looking at the calendar?
The date. Speaking of property, it's time to take inventory.
The National Broadcasting Company has presented The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Mandel Kramer as those popular personalities of detective fiction, Pat and Jean Abbott, created by Francis Crane. The cast included Louis Van Ruten, Nancy Sheridan, and Chester Stratton. The Adventures of the Abbotts was written by Howard Merrill. Original music composed and conducted by Dewey Bergman. Produced by Ted Lloyd and Bernard L. Schubert. Directed and recorded by Harry Frazee. This is Wayne Howell speaking. Next week, same time, same station. Another exciting adventure in crime with Pat and Jean in The Adventures of the Abbotts.
Adventures of the Abbotts has come to you through the worldwide facilities of the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
Tired of the everyday routine? Ever dream of a life of romantic adventure? Want to get away from it all?
We offer you Escape. Escape, designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight, we escape to a train headed for Calcutta and an exciting tale of the most sought-after emerald in the world, as Richard Sale tells it in his famous story, Figure a Dame.
You do it. You figure a dame. Take this Mrs. Arthur Bankner, whose body I'm hired to guard. A widow woman who wanted a piece of green ice so bad she came halfway across the world to this Raj Johor, this whistle stop in the middle of India. And then to the winter palace of a character named Samurai Dal. Him and his English jodhpur, his jeweled silk turban, his eyes like hard pennies. Him I didn't like.
The star of Kilimanjaro. It has finally brought you to me. What, Mrs. Bankner?
Oh, yes, Samari Dahl. Is that how I call you, or is it Mr. Dahl?
However you call me, madame, will be satisfactory when you pay me the $150,000 we agreed upon. American dollars.
Give him the money, Joe. I can't wait any longer. Oh, I think I've lived my life for this moment.
First we look at the emerald, huh, Mrs. B?
But Mr. Dahl wouldn't... Oh, Joe, it's not done that way. This is India. Different customs, different manners.
How true, Mrs. Bankner.
First we look at it. An old Brooklyn custom. Huh, Sam?
Of course.
Samari Dahl.
The emerald. The star of Kilimanjaro. Fetch it, girl.
At once, Samari Dahl.
Goes good with you, huh, Sam? Dancing girls with bells on their toes?
It's only adequate. I neglected to ask you this, Mrs. Bankner. Forgive me, but just who is this creature?
Joe? Oh, he's not a creature, Mr. Dahl. He's... well, for one thing, he's a detective for the Magnum Insurance Company.
That explains a great deal.
You see, Mr. Dahl, Joe, Mr. Harriman here, recovered some jewelry I lost in Paris. Oh, I was so impressed with him. I mean with how efficient he was. And
yeah, she means she persuaded Magnum to let me come along on this little buying trip for protection. Magnum thought it was a good idea, too. Now you know who the creature is. Now everything's gay, huh, Sam?
Samari Dahl.
Thank you. You may go back, girl, to whatever child's game you are playing. I could weep at having to part with this. Here, the star of Kilimanjaro.
Oh, Joe, look at it, look. Oh, all my life, many, many jewels, but, oh, none like this, none.
Yeah. It's something. It'll do.
Oh.
You are satisfied, Joe?
Yeah.
And you, Mrs. Bankner, it satisfies you?
Oh, yes.
Then it remains only for me to be satisfied.
Give him the money, Joe. Give it to him.
Yeah, okay. Okay, here, Sam. You can count it if you want to.
I want to. Oh, exquisite money. Good. Oh, Mrs. Bankner.
Yes.
If, by some grave misfortune, you should lose the Star of Kilimanjaro, or, more exactly, it be stolen from you, then please to refer the thief to me. I shall be happy to buy it back from him at a good price.
Mrs. B wanted to celebrate, so we went to the town's one hot spot, the Rasa Tal. It was a dive. And the props hadn't changed from Flatbush. Smoke, Oriental cigarette type, bartender, Oriental type, dames, any type. Complete with Lend-Lease jazz band, the joint was a shore-leave paradise with one great big advantage. No local ordinances. You name it, you can have it.
Oh, I'll have another swizzle, Joe.
Finish the drink you've got, and we'll see.
Oh, Joe, you don't have to be so solicitous. Oh, I've got the star of Kilimanjaro. I've got it, Joe, and we're celebrating, remember? Come on now, dance with me. Joe. Joe, what are you staring at? Joe.
Her.
Who, Joe?
That girl over there, the one against the bar.
She looks like an American, that one.
Yeah.
She's lovely. I only say that because she is. Now, you've looked at her, Joe. Now look back at me.
You know what? I've seen her before.
In Flatbush?
Here in India. A couple of times before. I look up, and there she is, leaning against a bar, or watching the same rope trick, or being a part of the same crowd as me.
She's following you, Joe, to the ends of the earth. And I bet her resistance is getting lower from bar to bar.
Following me, yeah.
I heard you say something about dancing, lady.
Well, now.
They're avesting you from the poop deck, sailor boy. Beat it.
Oh, Joe, at least buy him a drink.
Buy him nothing. Go on, sailor, make an exit while the house is still with you.
I was saying to you, lady, I was saying I heard you want to dance. This guy with you ain't made a move.
Now, what would you have done? Tell me.
Me? Me? I'd dance.
Yeah, you would.
What has happened here?
The Jolly Tar, he happened. Get him out of here.
Oh, yes, sahib. Amit Tohan, this man on the floor. Out!
You shouldn't have hit him, but... Joe, I liked watching you do it.
And I'm of the same mind. It was a beautiful thing.
Oh, you too, mister? You want to play too?
No, McCoy, no. I know an Irish Red Cross when I see one, so I brought you both drinks. My pleasure.
Why, thank you.
I am not Irish.
You may not know it, son, but you are. You know, someplace on your tree there's an Irishman. Do you mind if I sit down?
Who are you? What's the...
A man like you, son. I can tell it by the turn of your lips. A seeker, you might say. After what now? A woman's smile? And there's that here in India. Fortune? There's that here, too. Things, that's what.
Without the Irish poetry, who are you?
Rafferty. John Rafferty.
We're happy to know you, Mr. Rafferty, even for just this moment. We're leaving now.
Oh, really? But why? Let's stay, Joe.
Sleep. We'll need it. The train to Calcutta leaves early tomorrow.
And so it does. Then this is not goodbye after all. For I'll be on that train myself.
Sleep, I'd said. For the widow with the emerald, maybe, but not for me. I sat on the veranda of the Raj Johor Ritz just outside Mrs. B's room, and I could hear her making happy moans in her sleep. Once I heard a crawling noise. I got up, investigated, and found it was a noise made by something that crawls. Then came the dawn. I hustled Mrs. B and her bags into a Model T cab that took 2 hours to get to the railroad station a mile away. That I'd counted on, so we made the train for Calcutta on time.
Oh, Joe, just think, in a few days, Calcutta. Then the plane, then Paris, and then you leave me.
Yeah, that's how it was laid out, the itinerary. Go on in, I'll be there in a minute.
But aren't you coming with me?
No, Mrs. B, you go find your compartment. I'll bring the bags to you.
Oh, but... Oh, I see. The bar girl. That's who it is, isn't it, Joe? Coming this way.
That's who it is, Mrs. B. You won't want to be here when I talk to her, huh, Mrs. B?
No, but don't talk long, Joe. It's me that's paying you, remember?
So Mrs. B was on her way to her compartment. The star of Kilimanjaro and a little pouch with gold strings around her neck and inside her dress. This was the last lap. If anyone was going to lift the rocket, it had to be done before we got to Calcutta. And then the girl's perfume was inside me.
We've met before, haven't we? Where or when, I don't know, but we've met.
It's as good a way as any to get to know me. I'm Joe Harriman.
Marion Ryder. It seems we're always in the same places. On the train all the way from Bombay, at the cafe last night, here. Coincidental, isn't it?
Is it? I wouldn't know.
Well, of course it is. Wait, do you mean you've been following me?
A dream like you that makes you hungry inside? It wouldn't be hard.
Like that?
Like that. Traveling for your health, Marion?
No, business.
In this slop hole, something like you, business?
Well, I'm a kind of buying agent for a New York firm. Trinkets. That's it, trinkets.
Emerald trinkets?
Emerald would be lovely. I must find my compartment, Mr. Harriman. Maybe I'll see you again later?
Count on it, Marion. It's a promise I make to myself.
All aboard! All aboard!
I didn't see her again until later. I sat in my own compartment next to Mrs. B's and did a lot of thinking. Important thinking, and I didn't want it mixed up with her perfume. Maybe she was an out-and-out jewel thief, and that bothered me. She was a cinch to get caught if she tried to lift that stone. And you can't make that good time with a girl who's behind bars. I did my thinking like that for a long time. Had a couple of meals in between, and read, and did some more thinking. When I got finished with it, I was looking out of a window and seeing it was a night without moon. A night for company. I walked down to the club car and found what I was looking for. Hello. Hello, Miss... Oh, don't be frightened. It's me. That, kind of night out there get you down?
No. I was just toying with my memory. Sit down, Joe.
Oh, thank you. Toy with your memories some more. It wears wonderful on you. And then tell me about it.
All right. Now shall I tell you about it?
Uh-huh.
Out there, Joe, the night, the black hills, those strange little lights that flicker and swirl past you. It's like... Well, like I wasn't on this train at all, but out there and part of it. Like something I've known and remembered for a long, long time.
Is that all?
That, Joe.
This?
Joe.
Don't say we shouldn't have done it, because we should have.
I know, but what must you think of me? What?
I'll tell you. Because I level with women who level with me. I think you're interested in me.
And?
And trinkets. Expensive trinkets. Like the star of Kilimanjaro.
I don't understand you.
Mr. Harriman, please come, hurry. Mrs. Bankner.
What's the matter with her?
She is very upset. I think something is wrong. She says you come right away. She's crying.
Excuse me, Marion. I gotta go to work. Come on, you.
Yes.
Mrs. B. Mrs. B, something wrong?
Oh, Joe. Oh, Joe, I had a nightmare and I woke up. I was so frightened.
No. All right, conductor, thank you. You can go now.
Yes, sir.
I called for you when I woke up, but you weren't there. Oh, Joe. Sit here and put your arms around me. Oh, Joe, hold me tight.
Yeah.
It's better like this. You close to me like this.
Uh-huh.
Oh, look at me, Joe. What do you see?
You're so helpless, I could kiss you.
Try me, Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, you're hurting me. Joe, what? Joe!
Her throat was soft against my hands. Her arms waved around for a little while. The look in her eyes was something I had never seen before. She didn't struggle much. She didn't do anything much. Except not believe it was happening to her. That she was being murdered. Then she quit believing anything. She was dead.
In just a moment, we will continue with Escape. But first, every Wednesday night, Groucho Marx, Bing Crosby, and Burns and Allen in 1, 2, 3 order on most of these same CBS stations. Hear them all tomorrow night on CBS. And now we return you to the second act of Escape.
There wasn't much trouble falling asleep after that. After I was sure Mrs. B was dead. After I'd stashed the emerald where it couldn't be found. Wasn't much trouble falling asleep at all. Like being out with a beautiful dame, and she liked you. And you went home and put your arms behind your head and smiled to yourself. And you slept the best kind of sleep of all. It got to be 8 o'clock in the morning, and that was all right, too. Because there I was having breakfast in the diner with another promise I'd made to myself. Her name was Marion Ryder. And she poured my coffee for me.
I've been thinking, Joe.
Uh-huh.
I've been thinking it was wrong what we did last night.
I'll tell you why it wasn't, Marion. You want to hear?
Just don't lie to me.
I'm crazy about you. See, I don't even have to look down into my coffee cup when I say it, like you're doing.
I'm sorry. It's just that...
Wait a minute, honey. Conductor. Hey, come here a minute, you.
Yes? What is it you wish, sir?
I wish this. I wish that you would go down to Mrs. Bankner's compartment and wake her up. Tell her this mush you waiters serve for breakfast is lousy, but tell her she's got to get some food in her.
Yes, sir.
Well, don't just stand there. I wish it, so do it.
Yes, sir. Right away, sir.
Joe.
What are we saying, honey?
Don't call me honey.
Why not?
It's a word I don't care for. Just don't do it.
Yeah. No class, huh? Sure, wait till we get to Calcutta. I'll find the words that'll fit.
Joe, leave me alone now.
But...
Calcutta is only a few hours away, Joe.
Sure, I know about dames, Marion. They need thinking time to make everything right with themselves. Sure. I'll see you later.
Morning, my boy. Morning to you. Morning.
Oh, hello, Mr. Rafferty.
Have you had your breakfast yet?
Yes, don't remind me of it.
Oh, you come along and have a coffee with me then.
Thank you, but no.
Oh, by the way, my boy, Mrs. Bankner.
What about her?
Well, nothing about her, but I'm in the next compartment to hers, and I heard the conductor knocking on a compartment door just now, and she doesn't seem to answer.
Oh, she sleeps heavy.
Oh, well, she's lucky. Well, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
Mrs. Bankner? Breakfast, Mrs. Bankner?
What's the matter, conductor?
She doesn't answer. I've been knocking.
Oh, yes, sometimes she does that. Have you got a key to the door?
Yes, but...
Open it.
Very well.
Holy.
Something is...
Yes, something is, all right. Come on in. Close that door. Look at her, will you?
Something is...
You said that. She's dead. I'll tell you something else. The lady's been murdered.
You said...
I said murdered. Look at the marks on her throat. Strangled.
Sir, her hand. Please, she is holding something in her hand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she is at that, a button.
Perhaps the man who did this thing to her. His button.
That's a real good, perhaps. Come on. Not a word about Mrs. Bankner to anybody, you understand?
Yes, but...
I'm a detective. I know about these things. Not a word. Come on. When do we get to Calcutta?
In 3 hours, noon. First stops are for water. A 5-minute stop at a village, Mipirai, then Calcutta.
As soon as we get there, telegraph to Calcutta to the police. Tell them what's happened. And that's all. You understand?
Yes.
Well, now we go in here. In here.
But this is Mr. Rafferty's compartment.
Yes, the guy who did it. Close the door. I think he got what he was after from Mrs. Bankner. Maybe we'll find it.
There will be trouble. You are searching his things.
I told you I'm a detective. I know how to operate. Now, let's try this closet. Let me see. Nothing here.
But the button...
I'll give it to you. I'll turn it over to the British police when we get to Calcutta. Here, take it.
Yes. But the button in Mrs. Bankner's hand was brown.
Gray. Can't you see the button is gray? Take it. We stood there staring at each other for maybe a minute, and then his eyes eased off mine. He made a kind of sloppy salute. He turned, went down the train corridor to wherever it is conductors hold their heads in their hands. It had been awful close, awful tight. Tearing a gray button off Rafferty's coat while I searched it and palming the button off on the conductor, that was a little task that took delicacy and timing. So I'm delicate with my fingers, and my sense of timing is perfect, and I'm sure of myself. And that adds up to a win. When we hit the water stop, I got off to stretch my legs, to let myself breathe the fresh air so it would cool me off inside. The little guy running like a monkey on top of the water tank looked neat and clean in his white diaper and green turban. The hills covered with snow looked good, far away, but good. And then an Irish mosquito buzzed in my ear.
That's a lovely panorama, those hills. Lovely. It's like music. Flutes and bells and the flight of birds.
Yeah, they're like that. I don't know the words to the music, but they're like that.
It's a pity Mrs. Bankner isn't here to enjoy them with you.
What about Mrs. Bankner?
What about Mrs. Bankner? Well, why, she's dead. Murdered. Surely you knew that, my boy.
How did you find out about it?
Oh, you know how it is on a train. Things get themselves whispered about.
How did you find out?
Now, easy, boy, easy. You're a fiery one, are you not? It's only that I saw the conductor looking sad, and me being a kind of friendly human being, and smart enough to know conductors know things, I asked him why he was sad. Asked him in a way that made it easy for him to answer.
Quicker, Rafferty. Get to it quicker.
Well, he told me that you told him not to say a word about the murder. And I said, whose murder? And then he says, Mrs. Bankner's, and I said, oh. And he said he'd be disgraced because it happened on his train.
What else, Rafferty?
And the matter of the button was deeply puzzling to him.
Button?
Yes, the button. Now, isn't that a queer thing to be puzzling to him? Him with a murder on his hands.
got going after that. Me too, my brain, that is. Things going around in my brain. Everything got mixed up with that crummy little button and that crummy little conductor. Imagine a guy so scared he had to shoot his mouth off like that, and shoot it off to Rafferty, of all people. The conductor needed a little talking to, a finger waved under his nose. The way it happened, I was standing on the observation platform by myself, and he came right up to me.
Mr. Harriman? I beg your pardon, Mr. Harriman.
Yeah?
I beg your pardon, Mr. Harriman, but lunch is being served in the diner. An early lunch. We shall be in Calcutta in an hour.
Come here, you.
I beg your pardon?
I said come here.
You wish it?
Uh-huh. You know something? You look worried.
Because I am.
Why?
This whole affair. The murder and the...
Button?
That, sir. And the other thing. You say Mr. Rafferty is the murderer.
I told you not to talk to him.
I told him hardly anything. I didn't tell him he was suspect.
Oh, it's good you didn't. Real good for you didn't. Just let Rafferty coast, you understand? Then when we get to Calcutta, the police will arrest him because you've got the evidence. The button.
I've got it. Only...
Only what?
Only I thought it was brown.
You did, huh?
It was brown.
You're sure of it?
It was brown. When it was in Mrs. Bankner's hand, it was brown. When you gave it to me in Mr. Rafferty's compartment, it was gray. See, I have it here. It is gray.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Sir?
Give it to me. Thank you. Now, you know what?
It was brown.
Yeah, it was. But I'm saying something. I'm saying, you know what?
Sir?
I'm saying you've got to go. You really got to go.
Sir, what are you doing?
Right now, you
Sir,
got to go.
It was gray. No, no, no!
Now everything was right. Everything in place. The button I had proved Rafferty the murderer of Mrs. B. The conductor, everybody would say the poor guy had a bad accident. Now all it needed was the payoff to a dream. And that would be something named Marion Ryder.
Who is it?
It's Joe. I'm bringing you pretty flowers. Let me in.
I don't see any flowers.
You will. Shut the door, Marion.
All right.
Keeps twisting around inside me. I love you.
You can't say things like that.
Stop me, then.
Like this, Joe. Like that.
One of those things. I meet you, and bang. Electricity, just like that.
Joe.
I love you. I'd do anything for you. I never said that to a woman
Joe,
before.
wait. I've got to tell you something first.
What's to tell me? That you're a crook? That you followed me and Mrs. B so you could lay your hands on the Star of Kilimanjaro?
No, Joe, wait.
You're too late, kid. Mrs. B is dead, murdered. The emerald's gone. Something wrong, kid.
Oh, so much. So much.
Oh, nothing is wrong. Rafferty, the Irish poet, is going to take the rap for it. He was after the emerald, too, but he's not getting it. Just the gallows. That's all Rafferty
Joe,
gets.
listen to me. Stop talking and listen.
No, kid, you listen to me. I get 50 grand for it. We'll take it back to Semery Dahl and sell it to him again. 50 grand, you and me. We can die from so much joy. I killed her for you.
You? You killed Mrs. Bankner? You murdered her?
Sure. Kid, it wasn't hard. You mean that much to me, so it wasn't hard. It was almost a pleasure. A down payment on our happiness, you might call it.
Oh, you spoiled everything. Oh, Joe, you poor fool.
Marion, is that right, Joe? You're such a fool.
Get out of here, Rafferty.
No tricks, lad. This gun I hold makes holes in people. You're people, aren't you, Joe? Or are you?
What do you want here? Tell me before I go for my gun. I do foolish things like that.
I don't doubt it. But first I'll tell you, lad. I know how you planted a murder on me with a button from my coat. And I know where the Star of Kilimanjaro is.
So you're nothing but a filthy, stinking jewel thief, just like I figured.
Not quite, Joe. Marion, tell him how I know these things. Tell him who I am.
He's the chief of the Magnum Insurance Company agents in Bombay.
Rafferty, you're crazy.
No. Magnum cabled him to follow you and Mrs. Bankner to make sure the emerald got back safely. Magnum didn't trust you with a stone like that. They put another man on to make sure you wouldn't steal it. And you had to kill her.
They can't prove it. I'll pin it on Rafferty, so help me.
But you killed her. You just admitted it.
Only to you. Your word isn't worth dust. You're a crook yourself.
No. Not quite. Marion?
All right, I'll tell him. Joe, I happen to be Rafferty's wife.
She said it. It only took her a couple of seconds, but that's what she said. But it took a long time for the words and the sound to get to me. And you know something? Looking at her then, and watching her mouth move, she looked real sad, and suddenly real lonely. You do it. You figure it, dame.
Escape is produced and directed by William N. Robeson. Tonight we have presented Figure a Dame by Richard Sale, adapted for radio by Morton Fine and David Friedkin. Featured in the cast were Frank Lovejoy as Joe, Joan Banks as Marion, Sarah Selby as Mrs. Bankner, and Ben Wright as Rafferty. Also heard were Paul Frees, Harry Bartell, and Gary Merrill. Special music was arranged and conducted by Del Castillo. Next week.
You are on a small ship off the coast of Borneo. In the waters beneath you lies a fortune in pearls, and at your side stands a man from whose murderous greed there is no escape.
Next week, we escape with Floyd A. Nelson's exciting tale of reckless men and their lust for treasure. Seeds of Greed. Goodbye, then, until this same time next week, when once again we offer you Escape. It's Christmas time. Lots of mistletoe, lots of packages, lots of carols being sung. And never a man to overlook a chance to celebrate, George Burns gets into the act with a special program of what he claims are Christmas carols. George's sponsor had certain ideas about George's voice a few weeks ago and fired him from the show. And tomorrow night, you'll learn how George's fellow singers and Christmas shoppers in general react. For one of the merriest of holiday shows, don't miss George's and Gracie's program on most of these same CBS stations this Wednesday night. Now stay tuned for Hit the Jackpot, which follows immediately over most of these same CBS stations. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Johnny Madero, Pier 23.
You know, the only time San Francisco really gets hot is when a tourist calls it Frisco, and then it gets warm enough to give a sleigh dog a southern accent. Down around the waterfront, they don't care so much. And for a buck, you can insult anybody but Joe DiMaggio. The piers stretch out like a big yawn from south of the ferry building clear to the China docks. You pushed over on one side so you won't notice about the same spot you'll find dust in a bride's parlor. You find Pier 23. From there, it's a short skip to Johnny Madero's boat shop. My place. The sign outside looks honest, but down here the only sign people pay any attention to is rigor mortis. I rent boats and do anything else you can blame on your environment. It works out all right. But pretty soon word gets around you got a reputation. And it doesn't pay to argue. Because even if you're leveling, you make as much headway as a whistler with a split lip. I found that out last Wednesday afternoon. I was looking out the window watching the tide come in when somebody in back of me coughed. When I turned, Nat Finley was standing there in the office. He didn't say anything for a minute, and you noticed his eyes were as soft as the inside of a woman's arm. They had one of those faraway looks you couldn't follow with a road map. And then I saw the rest of him. He wasn't flabby, but he was on the way. And you got the idea he was an ex-fighter who settled down with a restaurant.
I got the right place, haven't I?
If a woman screams you haven't, what's on your mind?
That's a good question, Madero. That's a good question. That's what I want you to find out.
Look, fella, maybe I don't even want to be friendly. What's on your mind?
I don't know, Madero. I don't know.
All right, you convinced me. Now back out of here and we'll both be in the dark. Huh?
Wait a minute, Madero. Listen to me. My name is Nat Finley. My wife and I live up on Nob Hill, and I've been retired for a while, see? And...
I don't, but go ahead.
Well, you gotta help me, Madero. I'll pay you $50 a day to help me.
At that price, it won't be help.
I want you to find someone for me. But I don't know who or why, yet.
We're back to that again, huh?
Oh, listen to me. Lately, a name's been ringing in my ears. Just a name. Pete Sutro. Pete Sutro. Over and over again.
So you read it somewhere.
I don't know where I picked it up. For the last week, the name Pete Sutro has been on my mind. It's a nightmare. You gotta do something about it, Madero.
Change your diet. That might help.
I want you to find Pete Sutro. Find out who he is, where he is, why he's bothering me. If you do, I'll give you a $200 bonus.
Look, Finley, is this a job or a career? There must be a dozen Sutros from here to Jersey City.
Maybe, but the Pete Sutro I want lives right here in this town. He's got to.
There's a law?
Now, listen to me, Madero. Last night, I kept hearing the name Sutro again. Only this time there was an address, too. It was care of General Delivery, San Francisco. So he's got to be somewhere in this town.
Why don't you check the phone book?
I have, and the city directory, too. But so far, I haven't been able to locate him.
And I will, huh?
Well, if you don't, you're still getting $50 a day. What are you worried about?
That $50 a day? It might turn out to be a dream, too. You better throw in some advance money.
Well, sure, Madero. I brought a check along, just in case. Will $100 cover your doubts?
Yeah, if the bank can cover your check.
If they can't, you don't have to do the job. That fair enough?
Mm-hmm.
Will you start looking right away?
Yeah.
But you got to be careful, Madero. My wife's never to know about this, understand?
Why?
Because, well, she doesn't like the idea. She thinks I'm a little crazy looking for a name like this. She hates me, I think. She thinks I'm crazy.
Don't worry about her, Finley, until she starts mixing your nightcaps. For $50 a day, I'll chase anybody's dream. Because with that kind of dough, you're rich enough to run down a couple of your own. When Finley left, I called the bank and found out his check had solid backing. So I went down to Lofty's and I put out some feelers on Pete Sutro. It didn't take long before one of the boys came up with a lead. A couple of other people were looking for Sutro, too. One was a guy named Marty Kane. The other was a torch singer named Evelyn Day. The word was that Sutro and Evelyn used to trade mash notes in Detroit. Well, I phoned the Jade Club where Evelyn was working, but she wasn't due for an hour, so I decided to give Marty Kane first try. He was living in a motel out in the marina, so I went out. There was a sign outside that said modern cabins, but you knew Abe Lincoln did better in Illinois. The cabins were the size of an upper berth with enough holes to start a punch board. That didn't leave much privacy. You had more chance of keeping a secret from Mata Hari. I asked the manager where Kane's place was, and he pointed to the end cabin. I went over and knocked on the door. Kane opened it and glared. His eyes were the color of Saturday night on a week-old jag, and he was so chunky you figured he'd be harder to move than an icebox through a basement window.
Who are you?
My name's Madero, Johnny Madero.
Don't rhyme with anything. What are you looking for?
A guy named Pete Sutro. I hear you got the same idea.
So you got ears. I'll invite you in.
I can't turn you down.
Yeah, that's what everybody says about this gun. Now sit down. You get me nervous.
Put away the gun and we'll both be calm, huh?
After you tell me what you know about Sutro.
I'm tracking down a dream.
Yours?
A client's. You sound anxious. What's your pitch?
A wild one. Just say he owes me some dough and I need it bad now.
You got the muscles. Take in laundry.
I'll put you through the ringer first. I want to lead on Sutro.
Yeah, we both do, but I'm not going down on my knees.
Get up, Madero. I don't want to make a liar out of you again.
You're tough, Kane. I'll bet you got your dandruff scared stiff.
Yeah, and I'll start on yours now. What's Sutro to you?
$50 a day. A guy named Nat Finley hired me to track him down. Does that make you happy?
No, just ambitious. Who's Nat Finley?
He came in and paid me to find Sutro. He said the name was giving him nightmares.
Sounds like a bedtime story, Madero.
Well, if you don't like it, jazz it up. It's the truth.
I read the wrong papers. Give me another version.
All right, if you don't believe me, Kane, make up your own. Here's Finley's check. Can you read?
If you'll help me with the big words. Give it here. Nat Finley. Yeah, Nat Finley. You weren't lying. Looks like a good check. I'll take a chance. I'll cash it for you.
It's giving you IDs, huh?
Yeah, and the first one's about you. Now, here's your dough, Madero. Now, get out. Get out quick.
Oh, you're too good to me, Kane. Suppose the check bounces.
It won't, Madero, because I ain't going to cash it.
Oh, I couldn't figure it. Kane looked at the check and smiled like a guy who just learned all about the atom bomb. I walked out. The only thing I knew for sure was the demand for Pete Sutro was big enough to start a business boom. I headed back to my apartment to see how much lip I could bring down with an ice bag and a little pressure. When I got there, the door was open and the light was on. Inside, things looked even brighter. The brunette was draped over the couch like she paid the first installment on it. She was about 25, with a pair of legs that would have made a silkworm turn over and write a fan letter. She wore a tan business suit, and the way it was rumpled up, you knew office hours were over. When she saw me, she began to vibrate like an alarm clock at 6 in the morning.
Good evening.
I won't argue, but you got the wrong room.
Will I regret it?
I don't know you that well.
You'll catch up with the crowd. My name is Sheila. I'm Nat Finley's wife.
You should be somebody's wife. It cuts down on the risk.
I want to talk to you.
Go ahead. I'll try not to stare.
Let's have a drink first, Mr. Madero. Maybe it will cloud your vision.
Yeah, and the issue, too, huh?
You serve strong stuff, Mr. Madero. Soda?
I'm all charged up now, lady. What's on your mind?
I have a problem. Maybe you can help me.
Maybe it's too late. I'm listening.
It's about my husband, Nat. He tries, but he can't hide much from me.
I'll bet you have the same trouble. Look, lady, you're working too hard for a sale. If you got a point, make it.
All right, Mr. Madero, we'll skip the intermission. My husband saw you tonight and sold you a wild story.
Yeah, but it paid off. So far, I'm not complaining.
But I am. I want you to drop the whole silly job Nat gave you.
You're not building a case. $50 a day buys a lot of hangover, lady.
You don't understand, Mr. Madero. My husband is a sick man.
Yeah, I know. He can't sleep at nights.
He has a large imagination, and it's been getting worse lately. He, dreams up things. Sometimes I think he's a little crazy.
Maybe it's a hobby. He can afford it.
There are some things even he can't afford.
Yeah, like finding Pete Sutro.
That's right, Mr. Madero. There is no such man.
A guy named Marty Kane will give you odds.
Who did you say?
Marty Kane. He cashed in your husband's check. You know him?
No. No, I never heard of him.
You don't sound so sure. Marty was talking about Sutro.
All right, Mr. Madero, I'm talking about something else now. Money.
So far, you're whispering.
Shouting, Mr. Madero. $500 worth. I'll give you $500 to drop the job and forget everything.
All right, baby, you twisted my arm.
You won't let me down, Mr. Madero. Will you?
If I do, it'll be nice and easy. Finley had the kind of a wife you mate with a panther. She picked up her purse and peeled off 500 fish. She wasn't talking anymore, and when she swayed out, you wondered how much night practice she'd given that rumba. Well, I was all washed up with the Finleys, and it felt good already. So did the dough. I felt like a guy whose name was just picked in a chain letter. My mind was free for the better things in life. So I called up a girl out on Van Ness and told her to meet me at the Regent Bowling Alley. I got there before she did, so I started warming up the alley. A few minutes later, it got a lot warmer because Inspector Warchek of San Francisco Homicide began spoiling my game.
Hello, Madero. It was a nice strike.
You're in the wrong kind of alley, Warchek. What do you want?
Some pointers? You got time?
No.
I can see how you hold a bowling ball. Now show me how you hold a gun, huh?
All right, Warchek. What's on your mind?
I was on Marty Kane's.
A guy named Pete Sutro. He owed Kane some money.
And you paid off?
I paid him a visit. We had something in common.
And you must have bored him to death. Kane couldn't quite stand a couple of slugs in his forehead, so he quit.
Well, what do you want me to do, Warchek? Break the news to his wife?
No. Just tell me about the argument you had.
It was a monologue. Kane wanted to know where Sutro was hiding. I only knew one answer, so he did all the talking.
Oh, you should have said please. It's not polite to interrupt a guy with a gun.
Look, Warchek, what makes me the blue plate special?
The motel manager. He said you go into Kane's room, and then he heard a struggle, and then later on he heard a shot.
Did he hear who won the fourth? Listen, copper, a guy named Nat Finley hired me to find out who Pete Sutro was. The name was playing tag in his brain all week, and he wanted to know why.
Yeah, does that sound like a story?
Check with Finley. He's the guy who made it up.
What if he lets you down?
And work on his wife. She's not bad looking, and she paid me to drop Finley's account.
I'll check both your alibis, Manero. In the meantime, I want to line you up.
While you're making the rounds, look up a gal named Evelyn Day. She knew Sutro, too.
Go ahead. Run the police force. Tell me what to ask her.
Forget it, Warchek. You're not the type. Warchek stood there for a second, wiping his teeth with his tongue. If he'd done it on the outside, it would have been a contract job. And then one of the bowlers in a tight pair of slacks brushed up against him and went out. He looked at me once more and headed after her. Well, I didn't feel much like bowling either, so I left a note at the desk for the girlfriend and started out. I knew I was in trouble. Some days it's harder to duck trouble than a handful of pebbles. Oh, I told myself I didn't kill Kane, but that was like trying to fight a fire with an anti-smoke law. The big question was Pete Sutro. Who was he?
There were other questions, like why did the Finley dame buy me off? And why did her husband want Sutro in the first place? Well, there were no answers, and I felt about as safe as an alligator walking through a handbag factory, so I looked up the only good guy I know, a waterfront priest named Father Leahy. I found him in his room flipping through a couple of raffle books.
Hello, Johnny. You're just in time to buy a ticket. The boys' club is raffling off an electric toaster.
I'm already a little burned, Father.
I'm in a spot, Johnny. The boys gave me a quota to fill. And I got stuck at a banker's luncheon all afternoon. You know what they're like on risks.
Yeah.
I've got to sell some tickets.
All right, I'll buy a couple, but I need your help. I'm in trouble.
You'd better buy 5. At a time like this, both of us can afford to be generous. What kind of trouble?
This won't take long, Father.
You always say that, but it adds up. You don't realize it, but I lose whole weekends that way.
Will you please listen, Father? Warchick wants to pin me down on a murder.
He's got the weight. Who's dead?
A guy named Marty Kane. I saw him a couple of hours ago, and he was still alive when I left.
Can you prove it?
Well, that's going to be tough. The clerk at the motel saw me go into Kane's room just before he got tumbled.
So far, you don't have a way out. Why not plead insanity?
I would, but I'm afraid of the competition.
What do you mean?
A muddled-up guy named Nat Finley hired me to chase down the name Pete Sutro. He claimed the name was haunting him.
I know how he feels. Johnny, I don't think the bishop likes me either.
My only lead was Marty Kane, and he seemed to want Sutro worse than I did.
Sutro is certainly popular for a dream. Do you think he'll ever materialize?
I don't know, but I don't think Marty Kane was killed over a dream.
If he was, it must have been quite a nightmare. Did you look up your client again?
I didn't have the time. His wife paid me to drop the whole job. She said Finley was a harmless duck with a pail full of wild ideas.
Does the husband feel the same way about his wife?
Do you want gossip, Father, or do you want to help me?
That's an unfair question, Johnny. Either way, I'm embarrassed.
Please, Father. Will you check up on a few people for me?
Yes.
Look up Kane's friends, and if you run out of those, try his enemies. Find out who might have had an urge to kill him, will you?
It's a tall order, Johnny. There may be a lot of people involved.
I can use them all, Father.
I know. But can they all use an electric toaster?
When I left Father Leahy, I knew I still had one base to tag. It was Sutro's ex-flame, a doll named Evelyn Day. I drove down to Eddy Street and I parked near the Jade Club. Well, it's not a bad place, but on a slow night, even the winos are afraid to go in. Inside, it was dark enough to hide the decimal point on a check, and over by the bar, there was a piano playing music that nobody was listening to. And then Evelyn came out. And right off, he started hunting for the nearest fire exit. She had red hair about this side of 98 degrees, and she wore a black evening gown that held up by one strap and a prayer. She was the kind of a girl who could wear a Mother Hubbard and make it look like a negligee. And when she sang, it came out low enough to strike oil. After she was through, I asked the bartender to give her a message. She walked over to me, and she wasn't happy one way or the other.
Are you the man who wanted me?
One of them. You're Evelyn, huh?
Yeah. What'll it lead to?
A crisis if you don't sit down.
All right. You've got me interested. Now, what's on your mind? That we can talk about?
My name's Madero. Now, let's start with a friend named Pete Sutro.
Let's continue. What do you want to know about him?
Where is he?
Are you a cop, or will you pay for the right answer?
I need too many of them, baby. I'm way out ahead in a murder derby, and I'll pitch homicide anybody I can get.
What do you want Sutro for?
I think he shot Marty Kane.
Someone should have. But you're betting on the wrong horse.
You're prejudiced. Sutro was your boyfriend.
That's right. He was my boyfriend. But I haven't seen him lately.
All right, then. What was the last thing you did with him?
I'll read my diary to you someday.
Now, look, baby, you got a choice. I'm going to rough you up or let the pros do it.
Let go of my arm, Madero. Or I'll call a bouncer.
Call Sutro. Now, start talking before I bruise you up good.
Slow down, Madero. You're out of my weight class.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what you want to know.
Should I take notes, or is this going to be quick?
I don't know. Depends on how sentimental I get.
That's all right. I got a handkerchief.
Okay, I'll tell you. I used to be Pete Sutro's girl in Detroit. Then one day he skipped out and left me hanging on the vine.
Don't worry, baby. You haven't withered yet.
I started looking for him, and so did Kane.
Why Kane?
He and Pete had a deal together. Pete ran out with all the dough.
Your boy should have run for Congress. He's got a nice record. What kind of a deal did he have with Kane?
I don't remember.
All of a sudden, huh?
I'm shy when it comes to strangers. Let's just end it by saying Pete disappeared.
Let's say you're dummying up.
I love Pete, and I wouldn't want anything to happen to him.
Do you carry a picture with that torch, baby?
Sure. Want to see? Here's a snapshot of Pete in my locket. Do you know him?
Not this season, no.
I want him back. He was a good guy.
Yeah, your boy worked up a lot of people. He made #1 nightmare for a guy named Nat Finley.
I heard. And I want to see Finley, too.
You saw me, miss. But I want to talk to Madero.
Hello, Finley.
I got to see you alone, Madero. And I got to see you now.
You lost your option. I'm freelancing again.
Well, you can't walk out on me.
This is going to hurt, fella. Your wife paid me to drop the job.
That's what I got to talk to you about, Madero. I think she wants to drop me, too.
Finley grabbed me by the arm, and you could tell he was scared. His jaw was shut tighter than a wall safe, and his Adam's apple rode up and down like a yo-yo. Evelyn wanted to compare notes with him on Sutro, but right now Finley was as friendly as a no-limit poker game. He hustled me out of the Jade and into a waiting cab. He wouldn't say anything because of the driver, so he sat in one corner, rubbing his hands and looking straight ahead. When we got to the office, Finley paid the bill, and we went up the ramp. Inside, he had a little trouble getting started, like a big family leaving on a picnic. And then he got his voice.
I'm in a bad spot, Madero. I need help.
Have you tried classified?
I'm trying you. I tell you, my wife's out to get me. She keeps telling me I'm crazy. She's trying to talk me into it.
A lot of wives feel that way, Finley. She'll get over it.
Yeah? Well, I, Madero. She's trying to send me to an asylum. She and Sutro.
You got enough worries to start a peace conference. What brings Sutro back into the headlines?
I found a letter in Sheila's purse. Kane wanted $10,000 from Sheila to keep quiet about Sutro.
All right, quit crowding me with ghosts. So your wife had a past.
And she and Sutro have a future unless you help me, I tell you. I tell you, Sutro's behind the whole thing. He and my wife must know each other, and they're trying to get rid of me.
You're getting a complex, Finley. Slow down.
Well, you gotta help me.
Well, who's going to help me? I got a murder rap to beat.
Oh, but I'll clear you, Madero. I'll clear you if you help me now.
You couldn't clear your own throat in an empty tunnel. What makes you 8 feet tall?
This gun in my hand.
Oh, stop pointing it, fella. You're too nervous to aim.
Well, you don't understand it, Madero. I'm not pointing it at you. I'm giving it to you. This is the gun that killed Kane.
You were there when it happened?
No, but either my wife or Sutro was.
When did you dream that up?
An hour ago. I found it in my wife's closet. 2 slugs are missing, and I got a feeling it killed Kane.
Send it to homicide. They'll let you know who did it by return mail.
I can't, Madero. I can't just yet. I don't know whether Sheila or Sutro did it. I got a feeling inside. You've got to find Sutro, or he'll end up killing me yet.
That's a prediction?
Wait a minute. Someone's coming down the hall. Hide the gun, Madero. They're after me now.
Yeah.
They got the light fuse.
Lay low. They're aiming for something bigger.
What are you going to do, Madero?
Just waiting for something to happen.
Oh! Madero. I guess it happened.
Somebody turned a flashlight in my eyes and then hit a 4-bagger. If they hung around, they could have seen me do a couple of quick quivers a chorus girl would have been proud of. I laid there in the dark for a while, and if you're going to look messy, a blackout isn't a bad place to do it. After a while, I tried to get up, but my stomach felt as empty as a horse laugh at a funeral. I sprawled out again, and I tried to figure how a name like Pete Sutro could start so much pain. Then the lights went on. They should have stayed off because Warchek was breathing over me like a steam engine with a broken heart.
Hello, Madero. Does the light bother your eyes?
Yeah, Warchek. Get out of it.
Get used to it. It's a lot stronger down at headquarters. Tell me about the gun on the floor.
I heard you were coming. I wanted to commit suicide.
You didn't try hard enough. Just got a phone tip that said you had the gun that killed Marty Kane. Hand it to me.
All right, Copper, I'll make it easy for you. Finley left the gun here before somebody sapped me.
Uh-huh. Who's somebody? Don't any of your friends have names?
Sure. Check with Finley. He was here when it happened.
It was dark, Madero. How did he see? With an electric eye?
I don't know. Maybe he smelled his wife's perfume. Look her up, too.
She's that interesting, huh?
Kane used to think so.
What do you mean?
It was blackmailing her.
Look, Madero, a grocery list is blackmail to you. What put you on the inside?
Finley found a letter in her purse. Kane wanted $10,000 to keep quiet about Sutro.
Finley told you all about it, huh?
He can't keep a family secret.
And the wife tumbled Kane to keep him quiet. Is that the idea?
Well, this is your good day, Warchek. Find Sutro now, and you've licked the whole thing.
No, you find him, Madero, and we'll give you a reward.
You're too generous. What's the pitch?
Sutro's wanted for a payroll robbery in Detroit. He's been out of sight for a year now.
He hasn't been out of mind, though. Finley thinks his wife is carrying on a sideline with him.
Look, Madero, I talked to your boy, Finley. He's got enough dreams to start a mattress factory. I don't believe him, and I don't believe you.
You don't believe the world is round. Take stock, Warchek, and start learning.
Yeah, I will. Let's see how much the fingerprints on this gun teach me. If you've got a story, I'll stay after school.
You'll still wear the dunce cap.
That's all right, Madero. There'll be a badge on it.
Warchek wrapped the gun up in a handkerchief, and if it killed Marty Kane, I might as well start writing letters to the governor. The gun was a plant. but I had about as much chance of selling that to Warcheck as a pair of short pants to a reform school. Warcheck stood there and smiled. Then he walked out. Oh, there were a lot of questions again. Like who sapped him? And did Finley really have a story? The more I thought about it, the more snarl it got. And then the phone rang. Yeah.
Hello, Johnny. This is Father Leahy. Are you still free?
Yeah, but I'm breathing hard. How'd you make out?
Fine, Johnny. I sold 10 raffle tickets.
What'd you find out?
Warcheck just got a teletype. Sutro pulled a payroll robbery in Detroit. They think Marty Kane helped him.
Well, that figures. What else?
Sutro and the dough are supposed to be somewhere in town.
Yeah, even the bloodhounds are worried. How does Sheila figure?
She and a girl named Evelyn were both in love with Sutro. But rumor has it that Sutro's favorite was Evelyn.
What about Finley?
Sheila must have got tired of sharecropping, so she settled for Finley. They both came in from Detroit about a year ago.
But, Father, it's still fuzzy. Marty Kane was blackmailing Sheila because of Sutro. There must be a tie.
Evelyn's asking the same question, and she thinks Sheila knows the answers. She's on her way to the Finley place for a showdown.
Thanks, Father. I'll tag along and grab a seat on the sidelines.
It'll be a free-for-all if those two girls tangle.
Don't worry, Father. They won't get in my hair.
Don't be too sure. Samson had trouble with one girl.
When Father Leahy hung up, all the pieces began to fall into place. All but one. Where was Sutro? He was around somewhere, but it was like throwing a headlock on a shadow. I grabbed a cab out to the Stafford Arms, and when I got there, the doorman looked at me as if I'd just blown up an orphan. I took the elevator and got off on the 6th floor. And then I leaned on the doorbell, and Sheila answered. She was wearing a pair of rose-colored lounging pajamas, and I've seen baked potatoes with lucid jackets. She must have been surprised, but she didn't blink an eyelash.
Are you pausing or opposing, Mr. Madero?
I'm looking for trapdoors.
Oh, I thought you were going to look that way. Come inside.
Yeah.
Now bring that gleam in your eye over to the fireplace. We'll warm it up a little.
It won't look good in company.
Why? Who's company?
Evelyn's a little late. She got tied up sharpening her claws.
Evelyn who?
Hold out, baby. She's got a better question than that.
Like what?
Like, where's Pete Sutro? The key sounds like a friend.
That's too early. That's probably my husband, Matt.
Oh, hello, Madero. I'm glad you're here. Somebody's been following me.
Oh, you're dreaming again, darling.
You see? What did I tell you? It wasn't a dream. That must be her.
Hello, Sheila. Remember me?
You must have the wrong place, lady.
That's the right idea. I want Pete Sutro back.
You want too much.
I'll grab anyway. I've come for Pete, Sheila.
You came too late. He's dead. Pete Sutro died 2 years ago in Detroit. You hear me? He's dead.
Not dead enough. You're lying, Sheila. Pete Sutro is standing right behind you.
What do you mean? That's my husband. That's Nat.
So you gave him another name and another face. But you can't give him another voice. That's Pete Sutro.
What are you talking about? What are you saying? I'm not Pete Sutro.
Don't you remember me, Pete? I'm Evelyn. Oh, what did they do to your face, darling?
My face? I was in an accident. It's hard to remember things.
Remember the payroll robbery, Pete? You were supposed to come back to me.
Payroll robbery? It was an accident, and I was hurt. I can't remember anything else. It's so hard to think. Well, you were there, Sheila. What happened?
Go ahead, Sheila. Tell him what happened. Tell him that he's Pete Sutro. Tell him that you stole him from me. Tell him that you killed Marty Kane.
All right, Evelyn. I'll tell it to you first. It was a good campaign, but I'm voting you down.
Put away
now.
the gun. He won't stand for it.
He's henpecked now.
What are you doing, Sheila? You'll hurt him.
I'll try.
You shot her. You shot... Evelyn.
Pete, you remember me. She broke us up for good. But you remembered me.
Yeah. I remembered. Evelyn. I'm beginning to remember a lot of things now.
Then forget him, Nat. Just you and me now. We're married.
You are. You married a guy named Nat Finley.
Stay away from me, Nat. Nat.
Try Pete. See how it sounds. Give me the gun, baby.
Let go.
You killed Evelyn.
Let go. You didn't need her.
Not anymore. I got the gun now.
No, please, Nat. Please.
Tell me it's a dream, baby. Tell me I'm crazy.
You are, Nat. You are. Get out of my way. I'm getting out of here.
You're not quick enough.
The gun's empty now.
Yeah. So's everything. I'm tired, Madero. Tired.
Hold out. It's going to be a long trip.
Yeah. I told you, Madero. Pete Sutro was going to kill me in the end.
Yeah. You talked yourself into it. Warcheck got the whole story the next morning. Seems that Sutro and Kane were in a big robbery in Detroit. The plan was for Sutro to carry all the dough and meet Kane and Evelyn at their hideout. But Sutro got smashed up in an auto accident and never made it. Sutro's face had to be remodeled, and when he lost his memory, Sheila made her pitch. She promoted a wedding and cut herself in on half the stolen cash. Changed his name to Nat Finley and brought him out to San Francisco. Kane and Evelyn got wind that Sutro had taken off to the coast, so they followed. They couldn't find him, and for a year, Sheila and Sutro got along without a hitch. And then Sutro began hearing his real name in his own mind, and before Sheila could do anything, I'd already shown her husband's check to Kane. He recognized Sutro's handwriting right away, and so he started to blackmail Sheila. He didn't make any yardage because Sheila stopped him with a .38. And then she tried to convince her husband that he was crazy. Evelyn won in the last round when she recognized Sutro's voice at the Jade. Turned out that Sutro had been chasing himself until he caught himself. Well, Warcheck asked only one question. How can a guy forget his own name? I don't know. A lot of hotels would like to know that, too.
Johnny Madero, Pier 23, starring Jack Webb as Johnny Madero, has been presented by the Mutual Network. Johnny Madero is written by Herb Margolis and Lou Morheim. Gail Gordon played Father Leahy. Bill Conrad played Inspector Warcheck of Homicide. John Garfield played Nat Finley. Others in the cast were Gene Rogers, Joan Banks. Original music was composed and conducted by Harry Zimmerman, and the entire production was directed by Nat Wolff. Tony Lafrano.
This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Well, once again, it's Monday night and time to call on our good friend and host, Dr. Watson. I'm sure he's waiting for us in his study, so let's join him, shall we? Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Ah, there you are, Mr. Bell. I was just having a glass of extremely mellow port. Perhaps you'd care to join me.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. You're always the perfect host, just as you are the perfect storyteller.
Ah, you flatter me, my boy, though I must confess that the ingredients which make up tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure are so strangely assorted that even an old gentleman like myself can hardly fail to make it an exciting yarn.
And just what are the ingredients in tonight's story, Dr. Watson?
Well, let me see. Take an almost deserted island set deep in a Scottish loch. Sprinkle it generously with the following assorted selections of humanity. 1 measure of evil scientist, a faint wisp of human skeleton, a considerable pinch of fat lady, a handful of professional contortionist, and a dash of midget. Agitate these ingredients well, then add to the mixture a detective by the name of Sherlock Holmes and a certain doctor with the name of Watson. Season generously with fear, danger, and sudden death, and you have the recipe for the story I call The Island of Death.
Dr. Watson, you're beginning to make the hackles rise in the back of my neck.
Indeed, then, since hackle means hair, I think perhaps you'd better have your word with our listeners before I begin my story.
Yes, I will. Men, if you want to be a success in life, if you want to look like a success in life, remember that well-groomed hair means a lot to a man's appearance. I've heard so many men complain lately that the hairdressing they use is too greasy or too highly perfumed, that it leaves a sticky and flaky residue on the hair. That's why I urge you to try Kreml Hair Tonic. This highly specialized hair tonic has just enough light oil to keep hair handsomely groomed, every hair in place, with a rich, healthy-looking luster. and it gives hair such a natural, well-groomed appearance. Yet Kreml never leaves hair looking or feeling greasy or sticky. This is because Kreml contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. After you apply Kreml, just run your hand over your hair. Notice how delightfully clean your hair feels. So tempting for the ladies to touch. Notice how no greasy film comes off on your hand or hatband. Kreml always gives hair such a handsome, clean-cut look, as if you just combed it. And it keeps it that way all day long. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, how about the new Sherlock Holmes story, The Island of Death?
Well, Mr. Bell, as I told you, most of that exciting adventure took place on a tiny island in the Scottish Lake District. However, it began innocuously enough, as so many of our adventures began, in our rooms at Baker Street. It was on a stormy September evening, and Holmes and I were seated on either side of our fireplace. I remember after dinner that he began to analyze the old cliché that truth is indeed stranger than fiction. I can almost hear him now as he said,
"My dear Watson, the true picture of the criminal world is stranger than anything which the mind of man could invent."
"Oh, I'm not sure that I agree with you, Holmes. The police reports in the papers are usually quite undistinguished and dull."
"True, old chap, but that's the fault of the reporters. Depend upon it, Watson, there's nothing so unnatural as the commonplace."
"Oh, let's put it to a practical test. I pick up the evening paper. Here is the first heading upon which I come. A husband's cruelty to his wife. Now, there's half a column of print, and I bet you that without reading it, I can tell you the gist of the trouble."
"I accept your bet, Watson. Give me your deduction."
"Oh, it's not very hard. There is, of course, the other woman. The extra drink, the push, the blow, the bruise, and the sympathetic sister or landlady. The crudest of writers could invent nothing more crude."
"Your example is an unfortunate one for your argument, old fellow.
Very fortunate. Yours.
The article to which you refer is the Dundas separation case. The husband was a teetotaler. There was no other woman, and the conduct complained of was that he had drifted into the unfortunate habit of winding up every meal by taking out his false teeth and hurling them at his wife. An action which I think you will agree is not likely to occur to the imagination of the average storyteller."
"Hurling false teeth? Oh, absolutely fantastic."
"Quite."
What else can that be? You expecting a visitor?
"Yes, Watson, I am. And he might well prove a client who will point out the moral of our little discussion."
"Oh, what makes you say that?"
"The gentleman calling on me is a distinctly colorful personality by the name of Stephen Singer. He's nearly 7 feet tall, and yet he weighs under 8 stone. A card from him this morning informed me of his intention of calling here at 7 o'clock tonight."
"You said that he weighs under 8 stone. That's only 130 pounds. He must be a human skeleton."
"That was the unfortunate title applied to him at the circus sideshow at which I first met him."
"Good Scott, circus freaks here in Baker Street. Now I've seen everything."
"Freak is an unkind and inappropriate word, Watson. Stephen Singer's a fellow human being, and a more than unusually worthy one. In the case of the Bagshot Circus murders, he was good enough to take advantage of his almost unique physical proportion and oblige me by hiding in the barrel of a circus cannon. His evidence was instrumental in sending a diabolical murderer to the gallows. Let him in, will you, Watson?"
"Yes, of course. Good evening, Mr. Singer. Come along in, won't you?" "That's all right. Thank you, Mrs. Hudson."
"It's good to see you again, Stephen."
"Hello, Mr. Holmes. Don't want to make a nuisance of myself, but I did have a little problem, and I thought perhaps you'd help me with it."
"Of course, Stephen. Sit down, won't you? By the way, this is my colleague, Dr. Watson."
"How do you do, Doctor?"
"How do you do, Mr. Singer? My friend was just telling me that you once helped him in a murder case."
"Oh, that? 'Twas nothing. Just slipped myself into the cannon barrel and heard one or two things I wasn't meant to."
"Nevertheless, your help was invaluable, Stephen. I shall be only too happy to do what I can to repay the favor. What's your problem?"
"Well, perhaps I'm imagining things and perhaps I'm not. But wouldn't you say it was a rum thing if a professor offered me and 3 of my pals from the circus 50 quid apiece to go to some island in Scotland for a week?"
"Yes, indeed. I should say that's extremely odd."
"Can you give me a few more facts?"
"Well, Mr. Holmes, this professor come to the circus 3 nights ago when we was playing at Stafford at the Bow."
"What was his name?"
Professor McElwraith. Funny-looking cove with a bushy red beard he was."
"Indeed. I've heard of the gentleman. I understand that he is something of a rebel in the medical profession. He returned from Vienna recently, where he's been studying under Dr. Freud."
"Dr. Freud? Never heard of him."
"You will, Watson, you will.
Uh-huh.
He devotes himself to the psychological aspects of the human body. Pray continue with your story, Stephen."
"Well, Mr. Holmes, he approached me and 3 of my pals."
"And who are those pals?"
"Well, there was Bill Carew, The Major, we call him. He's a midget. And there was Belle Brackett, the fat lady. And the third was a bloke who joined the circus 2 days ago. Jeff Walner's his name. I haven't seen his act, but he bills himself as the India Rubber Man. Professor promised us 50 quid apiece, our tickets on the Scotch Express tomorrow morning, and told us he'd have a boat waiting to ferry us out to his island when we got there.
Holmes, there's something devilish going on here. Professor who studies psychology wants 4 people to go to a lonely island. A midget, a contortionist, a fat lady, and the fourth... Oh,
that's all right. I'm used to it, Doctor. The force a human skeleton.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
That's what you were going to say. Now, we all agreed to go up there. We didn't like the bloke, but none of us can turn down 50 quid. But we got to talking after he'd gone. Supposing he's up to doing us a bit of no good. And anyway, he made us sign that paper.
Paper? What paper?
I don't remember it too well, Mr. Holmes, but it did say that if anything was to happen to us, the professor wasn't responsible. That's what started us to talking and worrying after he'd gone. And that's why I've come to you.
I'm glad that you did, Stephen. Did you inform your friends of your decision to come to see me?
No, Mr. Holmes, I didn't. I might have done it if I'd have been sure you wouldn't have laughed at me.
I'm convinced that this is no laughing matter, Stephen. Unless I'm much mistaken, there's devil's work afoot.
Then you'll come up there with us, Mr. Holmes?
Yes. Tomorrow morning, Dr. Watson and I will meet you in Scotland.
Well, the lake looks extremely choppy, Holmes. The boat's quite small. I hope it's not too far to the island. I'm a wretched sailor, you know.
I'm sure it'll be a smooth trip, Watson.
Well, I certainly hope so. Hello? Here comes Singer with the other 3. Great Scott. What strange-looking traveling companions.
Well, since they traveled on an earlier train, I think it's time to have Stephen introduce us. Hello, Stephen.
Hello, Mr. Holmes. I'd like you to meet some pals of mine. Dr. Watson, Mr. Holmes, this is Miss Belle Brackett. Careful, Belle. Watch your step on the gangplank.
Well, dearie, got to be a strong plank to roll me up. How are you, Mr. Holmes? Dr. Watson?
How do you do? Thank you.
This is Bert Olney. Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson.
How do you do, son?
Don't know what you do on the bill, governors, but I can kick the back of my head with both feet at once.
Oh, really? Very useful, I should imagine. Providing you're not standing up.
What's your act, gentlemen?
Act?
Well, we haven't exactly got an act. Just regard us as friends of Stephen's. We thought a little trip to the Highlands might do us good.
Huh. It'll do me 50 pounds worth of good. That's all I know.
Put 50 more pounds on me, dearie, and I'd explode.
And this is Bill Carew, the Major, we call him. And Dr. Watson, Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
How do you do, Mr.
Evening, gentlemen. I do hope this isn't going to be a long journey. I'm really rather a poor sailor.
Well, I just said the same thing myself, Mr. Carew.
Oh, call me Major. Everyone calls me Major. I suppose it's incongruous when you consider that I'm only 4'3", but I do like the nickname. Have a cigar.
Cigar? Oh, no, thank you very much.
Well,
Major?
we're all aboard, Mr. Holmes. Might as well get going, I suppose.
Why not, Stephen?
All right, Captain. We're all here. You may as well get started.
Dr. Watson.
Yes, Mr. Alden?
Do me a favor, will you? Give us a scratch between the shoulder blades.
Give you a what?
A scratch between the shoulder blades.
Oh,
That's it. As soon as we crossed the border, these Scots fleas started to bite on me. Thank you kindly.
A starlit night, Watson, and a spanking breeze. I wonder what adventure lies in store for us. I have a feeling that Professor McIlwraith may not be too glad to see us.
Why did you come here, Holmes? I know who you are and what you do. Why are you so interested in my obscure experiments?
For 2 reasons, Professor McIlwraith. First, Stephen Singer's a friend of mine, and second, I have an insatiable curiosity, particularly for experiments that require obscurity. I want to know why a student of psychology wishes to isolate 4 malformed humans on a lonely island.
All right, stay. Stay into the devil with you both. You can't leave this island until I give the word. My inquisitive friends. Quiet! Quiet! The 4 of you and my employees for the next few days. 2 of you, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, are uninvited guests. Professional meddlers, as they assured me. And I've no reason to doubt that assurance.
Holmes, the man's as mad as a hatter.
Quiet, Watson.
Since you're old to be on my island during my experiments, I should like you to study this map and acquaint yourself with the place. Here you'll see are the guest houses, all interconnected by telephones. And I've installed the very latest form of that admirable new device. Now, down this path lies the snake house.
Snakes? I can't bear snakes.
It may not be necessary for you to meet them, Miss Brackett. Of course, I do use them in my experiments.
Ow!
Now, this path over here leads to the haunted watchtower. An interesting edifice, as you will discover. 7 enemies of James VI met a most peculiar death there. You'll find that they continue to meet that death quite regularly.
Look here, Professor. I don't like the sound of this.
Nor do I. You tell us what these experiments are that you keep talking about.
With pleasure. I've long known that the malformation of the body of freaks, if you'll forgive the expression, is caused by glandular deficiencies and imbalances. My studies have convinced me that these same glandular defects produce psychological alterations. For instance, you, Miss Brackett, weigh 4 times as much as you, Mr. Singer. It'll be interesting to see how differently each of you reacts to the same stimuli.
What do you think we are? Guinea pigs?
You talk of applying different stimuli to these people, Professor McElwraith. What kind of stimuli do you intend to apply, may I ask?
Every stimulus that the men and resources of this island will enable me to apply. Fear, hunger, desire, envy, hatred. This should prove most illuminating. Most illuminating.
I won't stand for it. We're human beings, not a bunch of animals.
That's right. Let's go on.
Larry, you're right, Bell.
Of course he is. The bloke's balmy. Let's get on the boat and go back.
I quite agree with you, sir. You're absolutely inhuman, Professor.
Mind your own business, you maddling fool. I paid these people to come here, and they're good to stay. You and your friend are more than welcome to leave, however.
No, Professor. I shall make myself personally responsible for seeing that these good people return to the mainland tonight.
That's right.
Indeed. Then you must be an extremely strong swimmer, Mr. Holmes.
What do you mean?
The boat left this island an hour ago. It will not return for 5 days. You fools. You grotesque idiots. You're trapped. So go to your quarters, all of you. Go on. And don't be surprised if I begin my experiments before the night is over.
Well, Holmes, if we are marooned on an island with a madman and 4 members of a circus, I suppose we might as well make the best of it. Oh, dear. I think I'll turn in. What the devil's that?
The telephone.
Wretched instruments. They're just a passing fad. They'll never catch on. You mark my words.
Yes, what is it?
Mr. Holmes, are you in your cottage?
Since I'm obviously at the other end of this wire, yes.
Dr. Watson, is he with you?
Yes, why?
I'm worried, Holmes. A few moments ago, I caught a glimpse of a figure standing near my library window. I'm speaking from there now. I thought it might be you or Dr. Watson. But if it isn't, I'm afraid...
And well, you might be, if only of your own conscience.
I'm afraid of them, the freaks. They're so angry. They might will...
I'd hardly blame them. If you're frightened for your safety, the best thing to do is to let us all leave here at once. Are you sure it's impossible to summon the boat before 5 days are gone?
Well, no, I did lie about that. I could give a signal in the morning by hoisting a flag on the watchtower. Just a moment. That was a stone dust against my window. I'll be back, Holmes. Don't hang up.
What does that devil want, Holmes?
Sounds distinctly subdued. He's frightened, Watson. He says there's someone lurking outside his window.
Holmes, are you still there?
Yes, Professor. What's wrong?
That figure just standing in the shadows. I can see it from where I'm talking. I can't see the face, but it's... Holmes! It's raising its arm! It's going to... Oh!
I'm afraid it's murder, Watson. Quick, we must get over to the big house as fast as we can.
In just a moment, we'll find out just what happened to Professor McElwraith. Every man who takes pride in his appearance should know that handsome, healthy-looking hair needs a hygienic scalp. And when you buy a hair tonic, be sure to get your money's worth. Be sure that you enjoy the extra advantages of Kreml hair tonic. This highly specialized hair tonic contains an amazing combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. Kreml keeps dry, stubborn hair neatly in place all day. And it always gives hair such a natural, well-groomed appearance, never sticky or greasy. But men, Kreml does lots more than keep hair looking handsome. Kreml leaves your scalp feeling so alive. At the same time, it removes dandruff flakes, and it's simply great to lubricate a dry scalp. And if you, like so many men, have hair so dry it breaks off and falls when you comb it, Kreml actually helps condition the hair in that it makes it feel softer and more pliable. So, men, buy a bottle of Kreml at any drug counter. Ask for an application at your barber shop. Let Kreml help keep your scalp hygienic, your hair always looking its very best. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Well, Dr. Watson, when you got over to the big house, did you find Professor McElraith was dead?
Yes, Mr. Bell. A quick examination of his crumpled body told me that he was beyond mortal aid. Holmes lost no time in examining that room of death.
This crime isn't very hard to reconstruct, Watson. The dead man was standing here as he spoke his last words to me on this telephone.
Yes, and the window is beside the instrument. The glass in one pane is shuttered.
Yes, at a height of approximately 5 feet. The professor was shot in the temple. He was about 6 feet tall. The line from his wound through the broken pane would indicate that the killer stood out there in the rose garden.
What's up, Mr. Holmes?
Yes, we heard a shot. Anyone get hurt, dearie?
Yes, I'm afraid they did. Professor McElraith has just been murdered.
Murdered? Well, can't say I'm sorry.
Perhaps not, Major, but the fact remains that his killer must be brought to justice. By the way, only 3 of you are here.
Yes, where's Bert Olney, the contortionist?
I don't know. He went straight to his cottage when we got back from the big house. That's the last I saw of him.
You know, it's a funny thing. I was only half awake, Mr. Holmes, but I thought I heard 2 shots, about 5 minutes apart.
2 shots? And Bert Olney has not appeared? We must go over to his cottage at once.
Oh, poor Bert. Is he hurt bad, Dr. Watson?
No, a flesh wound in the back. He was lucky.
Curious. Observe the revolver lying on the floor beside him. The same caliber as the one used to kill the professor.
I see what Bert's done, Mr. Holmes. He killed the professor to save us all.
That's right, Stephen. And then he tried to kill himself because he knew you'd catch him, Mr. Holmes.
That's the way it must have been. Oh, he was a brave man.
An interesting theory.
Yes, but only a theory. Look at the position of the wound. I'll stake my medical reputation that it couldn't possibly have been self-inflicted. Holmes, this has been an attempt at another murder.
More coffee, Watson?
No, thank you, Holmes. I've drunk a blasted gallon and I'm still sleepy.
And I've smoked almost the entire supply of tobacco I brought on this trip, and I'm still very wide awake. I asked questions until well after midnight. And what did I learn?
The servants all alibi each other.
Precisely. And that of our party of 4, no one is able to provide an alibi for the other.
So that it must be one of them. As ill-assorted a group of suspects as we ever met.
Yes. It's a strange business. Why the attack on Olney? The professor, yes, that's quite understandable. But why Olney? What singled him out from the others?
Oh, I don't know. He's a contortionist, but he's perfectly normal-looking. He doesn't seem like a freak.
Of course. That's it. Thank you, Watson. You've given me the other end of the thread.
Oh, have I?
Round up the others and bring them to the haunted tower. Dawn is beginning to break, but before we hang that signal for rescue, I shall find the answer to this bizarre problem. Before we fix this signal flag, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to warn you that as soon as we reach land, I shall turn Professor McElraith's murderer over to the authorities.
Let it go, Mr. Holmes. Whoever it was did us all a good turn. Let's forget it.
I'm afraid that murder is not a matter to be forgotten, Major.
But surely you haven't forgotten the attempt on your own life, Mr. Olney.
I feel nearly as good as new, Governor. I think the Major's right. Let's forget it.
No, Mr. Olney. Not even on your request. Because the whole case centers around you.
Who, me?
Last night, while the murderer was standing outside his window, the professor telephoned me. He wanted to know if both Dr. Watson and I were in our cottage. The implication is obvious.
You mean that the mysterious figure he'd seen resembled us in build?
Precisely, Watson. Now, Mr. Singer's nearly 7 feet tall. You, Miss Brackett, if you'll forgive me, could hardly be mistaken for us.
You said it, dearie.
Well, no, 'cause the Major, he told us that he's only 4'3". It must have been you, Mr. Olney.
But I got shot too. And you said when you examined me that it was impossible. I could have done it.
Medically impossible for a normal man, but I'd forgotten your profession. You're a contortionist. You could easily have shot yourself at such an angle.
What do you have to say, Mr. Olney?
That I,
Why not admit the truth? You're not a contortionist, are you?
No, Mr. Holmes, I'm not. You see, my twin brother got the bit for this here job, but he had another engagement. And since the professor was so particular about the date, my brother told me to come here and we'd split the fee.
But how did you know that he wasn't a contortionist, Holmes?
You should remember, Watson.
Huh?
When we first saw him on the boat, he complained of the Scottish fleas and asked you to scratch between his shoulders.
So he did, yes.
A real contortionist would not have needed your assistance. So your medical verdict still holds good, Watson. Olney could not have shot himself.
But you've ruled the rest of us out, Mr. Holmes.
Not quite, Stephen. The simplest answer is that the mysterious figure that the professor described was disguised.
Disguised?
That theory would be confirmed by the fact that the killer, when he was in the garden, saw the professor standing at the telephone and deliberately attracted his attention by throwing a pebble at the window.
Look here, Mr. Holmes, the sun's well up. I'm tired of all this theory stuff. I'm going to hang the flag on the tower.
Very well, Major.
But, Mr. Holmes, don't keep us on edge like this.
Yes, dearie. You said someone disguised themselves. Now, who was it?
Well, surely the answer's apparent.
Not to me, it ain't.
Could you, Miss Brackett, have reduced your excessive weight to appear the size of a normal man? No. Nor could you, Stephen, have decreased your excessive height. But the Major could have made himself appear taller with improvised stilts.
Then the Major's the only possibly guilty party.
The Major?
Well, I mean, it's hard to believe he done it.
Well, even if he did, I still don't think we ought to turn him in, Mr. Holmes.
Oh, no. Remember, he did it for us, dearie.
Well, he didn't really hurt me when he took that shot at me.
But that's just it, Olney. I might have been tempted if it were only the professor's murder. But he deliberately tried not to murder you, Mr. Olney, but to make it appear that you had killed the professor.
But if he's arrested, there'll be a trial, dearie. And if there's a trial, you know how it'll be. They'll make out it was all because he's a freak. It'll be harder than ever for people to accept us just as people.
Bell's right, Mr. Holmes. It'd be bad for all of us.
I think the Major has thought of that possibility. Look at him up there on the tower.
He's hoisted the flag. Huh? Now he's teetering on the edge of the parapet. He's going to... Major!
Blimey, he jumped.
Must be a couple of 100 feet down there. He doesn't have a chance.
Oh, the poor Major. He done it for us.
Come on, Belle. I'll take you back to the cottage.
I suggest we all return to our quarters and pack. This unhappy tragedy has reached its final conclusion.
What a shocking business.
You're right, Dr. Watson. When I came to you in Baker Street, I never dreamed it would end up like this. One thing I'd like to say, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, Stephen?
I want to thank you, not just for solving the case, but because you treated all of us not as freaks, but as ordinary human beings. Makes a big difference, you know.
I know of only one way to treat people, Stephen, and that is as each person deserves to be treated. If Professor McElwraith had only realized that truth, he would not have paid with his life.
When you girls go out on an important date, you naturally want your hair to appear just as beautiful and lustrous as it can be. So here's a tip from some of the world's most divinely beautiful girls, Powers models. Girls who are famous for their enchantingly lovely silken sheen hair.
We glamour bathe our hair with Crumpled shampoo. And I want to state that no other shampoo leaves the hair more sparkling clean. Really, girls, you'll be amazed how Crumpled shampoo brings out all your hair's natural gleaming luster. It leaves hair shimmering with brilliant highlights that last for days.
Crumpled shampoo is not a cream shampoo, not a soapless shampoo, not a drying detergent. After a Crumpled shampoo, the hair fairly radiates natural glossy highlights. Crumpled shampoo even has a built-in oil base, which actually helps keep the hair from becoming dry or brittle.
How right you are, Mr. Bell. Kreml shampoo leaves the hair so much softer, silkier, with satin smoothness. The hair holds a wave better, too.
So, ladies, buy a bottle of Kreml shampoo at any drug counter. See how easy it is to have naturally lustrous hair and a vision of shining beauty. Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week?
Well, I'll never see it next week. Well, now, next week, I think I'll tell you about another of our encounters with the infamous Professor Moriarty, and how Holmes deduced that an apparently unimportant robbery in a Sussex vicarage was in reality part of a plot that threatened the safety of all England. I call it the strange adventure of the pointless robbery.
Tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, A Case of Identity. Nigel Bruce appeared through the courtesy of California Pictures. Tom Conway through the permission of Eagle Lion Pictures. The Sherlock Holmes series is produced by Tom McKnight, with original music composed and conducted by Alex Steinert. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo, and inviting you to be with us next week at this same time, when Dr. Watson will tell us about the strange adventure of the pointless robbery. America is strong only if her school system is strong. Today, it's overcrowded and inadequate. So support your Parent-Teachers Association. Do all you can to improve conditions in America's schools. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Listen while the makers of Rexall drug products and 10,000 independent Rexall family druggists bring you Dick Powell as Richard Diamond, private detective.
Good evening. This is your Rexall family druggist with a welcome from the 10,000 independent druggists who have made the word Rexall part of our own store names. We've done that because we recommend and sell the 2,000 or more drug products made by the Rexall Drug Company. Like Plenamins, for example. Rexall's famous multivitamin capsules. 2 Plenamins a day give you more than your daily minimum requirements of every vitamin for which such requirements have been established, plus valuable liver concentrate and iron. And yet, Plenamins cost only pennies per day. Ask for Plenamins at Rexall drugstores everywhere. And remember, you can depend on any drug product that bears the name Rexall.
Good health to all from Rexall. Now your Rexall family druggist brings you a transcribed half hour with Richard Diamond, private detective, starring Dick Powell.
Diamond Detective Agency. Handy hints on happy homicide.
I beg your pardon?
I said Diamond Detective Agency. Handy hints.
Yes, I heard the last part, but I just wanted to be sure there was nothing the matter with my phone. Mr. Diamond, I wish to hire you.
I'm touched. $100 a day in expenses.
I'm touched.
Well, if the figure depresses you a little, I suggest getting out in the fresh air. Exercise. Play a little golf. If you could use a dandy caddy on Sunday.
I can easily afford the fee, Mr. Diamond, but to be frank, it wasn't exactly what I expected. Isn't it a little high?
Well, frankly, yes. But if you hire another detective, you won't be getting the prettiest.
I see. Can you come to my house at 6 this evening?
Name, address, and reason for hiring me?
George Lexington, Golden Strand, Long Island. And I'm in fear of my life.
I'll see you at 6, Mr. Lexington.
On the dot. Please be prompt.
Just have a substantial retainer ready. Aside from my blue eyes, greed and promptness are my two most outstanding features. Well, that's the way a buck's made in my business. I sit around the office for a week, passing the idle hours, playing old Welsh mining tunes on a comb. Then someone gets in trouble, opens the phone book, and naturally the first thing that must catch their eye is my very gaudy full-page advertisement on the Diamond Detective Agency. After that, a phone call, and I'm in business. At 6 sharp, I was ringing the doorbell at the home of Mr. George Lexington, client in fear of his life.
Yes, sir?
Mr. Diamond, to see Mr. Lexington.
Mr. Lexington is busy at the moment. Does he expect you?
I have an appointment with him at 6.
Oh, I see. Please step in. If you'll wait in the library, sir, I'll tell Mr. Lexington you are here. What was that?
Unless you keep a car in one of the upstairs rooms, that, my friend, was a gun going off. Come on. With the butler right behind me, we took the long, curved staircase 3 steps at a time. The butler managed to pant out that Mr. Lexington was in the study at the head of the stairs, so that was the door we went through, only to be stopped cold on the other side. Standing in the middle of the room was a girl. The word girl, in this case, to be identified with adjectives one might think up after having spent 3 lonely years on a life raft in the middle of the Atlantic. The only thing that kept my eyes from melting and running down on my shirt was the .32 revolver she held in her gloved hand.
Miss Morris, no!
Give me the gun, honey.
No. No.
Drop it, honey. You just scorched my money belt. She dropped it, and we all went to pieces. I helped her to a seat and let her cry it out. The gun I could have passed off as a whim or too many Hopalong Cassidy adventures, but the man sprawled across his desk on the other side of the room changed the whole picture. I called the 5th Precinct Police Station and got Lieutenant Walter Levinson started for Long Island.
The police?
You shot a man, didn't you?
Yes.
You tried to kill yourself, didn't you? Well, they're both against the law. Want to tell me about it?
He deserved it.
Mr. Diamond?
Yes?
I just found something rather strange.
Well, don't scratch it.
Miss Morris shot Mr. Lexington, all right.
I never denied it.
Well, what's bothering you?
The thought just occurred to me. Who also took the trouble of stabbing him?
Stabbing him? He was shot.
Then how do you explain this carving knife in his back?
Oh, now, Diamond, you stop that.
But it's true, Walt.
Sure is, Lieutenant. Been shot in the chest and got a knife in his back.
Oh, how do I get in on these things?
This is Miss Morris, Walt, the girl who shot him.
How do you do? Oh, you shot him, huh?
Yes, Lieutenant.
Well, who stabbed him?
Have no idea.
Swell. Miss Morris, why did you shoot this, what's his name?
Lexington, George.
Why did you shoot him?
I refused to answer.
Okay, suit yourself.
Where's the coroner, Walt?
Should be here any minute.
I didn't stab him, Mr. Diamond.
When you came in, did you talk with Lexington?
I just opened the door, saw him sitting at the desk, and I shot him.
Did you talk to him?
Oh, sure, Walt. She played 20 questions with him while he was trying to paw the knife out of his back.
I was just trying to trap her.
Why?
Why? Because if she said she'd talk to him, it would have been an admission that,
She'd talk to him.
No, that he was still alive before she shot him.
Okay, who stabbed him?
How do I know?
Well, if he was still alive before she shot him, she talked to him, then she must have seen who stabbed him, right?
Yeah.
Well, if she saw who stabbed him, she couldn't have done it, right?
Right.
And no one would have stabbed Lexington if he'd already been shot, right?
No one would have stabbed Lexington if he'd already... Yeah, of course. You think I'm stupid?
Lieutenant...
You shut up.
So if they stabbed him, he hadn't been shot and he was alive.
Of course.
Then if he was alive and they stabbed him, the girl didn't do it to confuse you.
Huh?
So if she didn't do it, she can go home. Go on home, Miss Morris.
But, Mr. Diamond...
You heard him. Go on.
That's what I was trying to tell you, Lieutenant. Diamond's at it again.
Otis.
Yeah, Lieutenant?
Take the girl, the butler, and Diamond down to the car. And when the coroner gets here, we'll all take a little drive down to the station, understand?
Yes, Lieutenant.
What are you yelling at?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, the coroner finally arrived and suggested an autopsy for the corpse and a bath in some hot mud for Walt. Then we all climbed into the squad car and headed for downtown New York and the 5th Precinct Police Station. On the way, I told Walt about my phone call from Lexington about 3:45 that afternoon
and the few details leading up to finding June Morris with a smoking gun and the dead Mr. Lexington. At the station, we continued to question the girl as to her motive for the killing, but she refused to say anything. The butler could add nothing, so they were taken out to await further questioning. She was allowed to call her lawyer, and we all settled down to wait for the coroner's report on the autopsy.
Yeah?
The dame's lawyer is here. Wants to see you first.
Okay. Girl's lawyer.
Mr. Farnsworth, Lieutenant.
Hello, Lieutenant. What is this all about?
Mr. Diamond, Mr. Farnsworth.
How do you do?
How are you?
I just got a call from Miss Morris.
Lieutenant.
Pardon me a minute. Well, what do you want, Hammerhead?
I got the girl's personal effects.
Well, give them to me.
Okay. Gee, what did I do?
Nothing, Sergeant, but your family sure botched things up.
Oh, there you are, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Gee, I don't know.
Am I to understand that Miss Morris is being held here on a murder charge?
That's right.
Just whom is Miss Morris supposed to have killed?
You know a Mr. George Lexington?
Why, yes.
He's the boy.
Maybe you can tell us why she would want to kill him.
I suggest you question the witness, Mr. Diamond. But let me warn you beforehand. My advice to my client will be to say nothing until I can find out more about this thing for myself. Now, about Miss Morris.
She stays put.
Lieutenant, I have a great deal of influence.
Then get her rich. She stays put.
What about this George Lexington's background, Mr. Farnsworth?
Let me give you one more suggestion before I leave. Find these things out for yourself. I have a fair reputation in the legal profession.
Good evening, Mr. Farnsworth.
I'll have that writ, Lieutenant.
Go to blazes.
Nice fellow.
A doll. Well, let's see if there's anything in these personal effects here. Take a look through the purse.
Okay.
Otis.
Yeah, Lieutenant.
Bring in the butler.
Right.
Here's something, Walt.
What is it?
A typewritten note in the bottom of her purse.
What's that?
Meet me at the house at 5:15 this evening. Bring $15,000 and be prompt, or you will regret it for the rest of your life.
Signed, George. George Lexington.
Well, bully for you.
Diamond, I swear.
Out to the butler, Lieutenant.
Come in. Sit down.
Well, thanks. My face...
Not you, melonhead. Get out of here.
Oh, well, okay. I just thought...
Otis.
Yeah?
When the coroner's report comes in, bring it right in and bring the girl along with it.
Yeah, Lieutenant.
How do you feel, Arthur?
A little upset, sir. This has been quite a strain.
Last name Cameron?
Yes, sir.
How long have you worked for George Lexington?
About 4 years, sir. Ever since Mr. Lexington came east.
Did you know him before that?
No, sir.
You ever mentioned where he was from?
California, I think.
Had a lot of money?
I presume so. I was paid regularly. He maintained a good-sized house and entertained frequently. To my knowledge, he never had any debts that weren't paid immediately.
How long have you known Miss Morris?
She and Mr. Lexington were engaged 2 years ago. It only lasted a few months. But they still saw each other occasionally.
Did you know Miss Morris was expected tonight?
Yes, sir. She called and said she would be there at 5:45.
You sure about the time?
Yes, sir.
But you didn't expect me at 6.
No, sir. Mr. Lexington said nothing about it.
Is there another way into that study?
Yes, sir. A back door leading down to the garden.
Did Lexington have any other visitors during the day?
No, sir.
Was he in from 3 to 5?
Yes, sir.
I got the coroner's report and Miss Morris, Lieutenant.
Okay, that's all, Arthur. We'll have to hold you until this thing straightens itself out. You go along with Sergeant Loveloon.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Arthur.
Yes, sir.
Does Mr. Lexington own a typewriter?
No, sir.
All right. Come in, Miss Morris. Sit down.
Here's the report and the bullet taken out of Lexington and the knife.
Take the butler downstairs.
Right. Let's go, Arthur. Yes.
When did you receive this note, Miss Morris?
Where?
We found it in your purse. When you become a murder suspect, I'm afraid nothing's very private.
This morning.
It's from George Lexington?
Yes.
He have something on you? Okay, you're just hurting yourself.
Miss Morris, did you know a man named Jack Short?
No.
Who's Jack Short, Walt?
Just read this report. Here's what it says about the late Mr. George Lexington. Fingerprints check one Jack Short, arrested 1936, 38, 39, petty theft, suspicion of robbery, suspicion of possessing narcotics, 3 arrests, 1 conviction. Did a year and a day in Alcatraz.
When did he have time to do his laundry?
He was arrested again in 1942 for manslaughter. Went to trial, case dismissed for lack of evidence. Lovely boy.
You mean George Lexington?
Was really Jack Short a criminal with a record?
But his house, servants, the money he spent.
That's something we're going to find out about.
What does the coroner's report say, Walt?
The knife did kill him, not the bullet. And the knife has got your fingerprints all over it, Miss Morris.
What?
It's got what?
That's right. Ever see it before, Miss Morris?
I don't know.
It's a carving knife. One that might belong to a cent. Something wrong?
That's my carving knife. I missed it this morning.
Sure.
When was the last time you used it?
Last night. I gave a small dinner party.
Do you own a typewriter, Miss Morris?
Yes, I do.
Hello, June. You'd better come along with me.
Oh, Mr. Farnsworth.
Just a minute. What's the idea of busting in here like this, Farnsworth?
I tried to stop him,
You
Lieutenant.
should have stuck out one of your big feet. Those things could trip a tank.
I told you I would be back with the writ. Well, I'm here, and there's the writ. Come, June.
She stays right here.
Lieutenant, you don't seem to
No,
understand.
you don't seem to understand, Mr. Farnsworth. You got that written and was sustained because I was nice enough not to issue a formal complaint.
Also, there's a little matter of influence.
You're darn right, and I'm going to show you how it works. I'm making a formal complaint right now, and the charge is murder. And if you don't think I can make it stick, I won't even bother to throw you out of my office. I'll let the commissioner do it for me. Now get out of here.
Gee, you're wonderful, Lieutenant.
You shut up.
Before we continue with the adventures of Richard Diamond, private detective, here's your Rexall family druggist.
One of the questions most often asked a druggist is this: what can I take for fast relief from acid stomach?
I've often wanted to know that myself. What's your answer?
Naturally, ma'am, it's Bismarex, Rexall's justly famous antacid.
Why? What is it that makes it so outstanding?
Well, the secret lies in the scientifically developed formula. You see, the active ingredients in Bismarex vary in the time it takes them to dissolve in the stomach. That way, the relief it gives is not only fast, but continuous and prolonged. Excess acidity is often neutralized in less than 1 minute. Then the other ingredients, dissolving more slowly, ease up that gastric distress. And finally, Bismarex leaves a soothing protective covering on irritated stomach membranes.
Well, I'll have to remember that. Bismarex. Is that how you say it?
That's right, ma'am. BISMA-REX. Bismarex. Ask for Bismarex at Rexall drugstores everywhere. And remember, you can depend on any drug product that bears the name Rexall.
And now back to tonight's adventure with Richard Diamond, private detective, starring Dick Powell.
Well, Farnsworth got the idea in a hurry and took off like a rabbit with his tail on fire. Walt lived up to his word. After making the formal charge and producing the evidence, the writ was dismissed. He then secured a search warrant for both Miss Morris's flat and George Lexington's house on Long Island. Our first stop was Miss Morris's apartment, and when we went in, I thought how much it looked like her. Small, beautifully decorated. We went over the whole place, nothing except in the small den.
Here's the party list she told us about.
Good 30 names here. Typed.
And there's a typewriter.
You got that note you had in your purse?
Yeah, here. Top of the E is blocked out like on the note. Same machine.
No.
Bring the typewriter, Otis.
Right, Lieutenant.
You going over to Lexington's home?
Yeah, aren't you coming along?
No, I got an idea. Do me a favor, will you, Walt?
Well, sure, why?
When you get over there, besides checking that back door to the study, put in a call to the phone company and see if a call was made around 3:45 this afternoon to El Dorado 1234. It's a toll call from there, and they'd have a record.
Now, let me write that down. El Dorado 1234.
Yeah. I'll call you at Lexington's in about an hour. If that number wasn't called from there, check every name on that party list.
Well, there are 30 names there. You want me to check each one to see whether a call was made to El...
What's the matter?
El Dorado 1234. That's your office number.
Walt.
Huh?
Bye. I left Walt turning that awful green and headed for the Times building. It was a little late when I got there, but an old friend at the morgue noticed the $5 bill I was wearing in my lapel and agreed to take care of it for me while I looked through the newspaper files. I dug up everything on Jack Short and his alias George Lexington. The stuff on Short wasn't much, except the trial for manslaughter had made the front page. The items on George Lexington could all be found in the society columns. From what I could gather, he'd started his social whirl in 1944. He'd been engaged several times, and each time to a wealthy woman. I even came across a picture of June Morris on the evening they had announced their engagement. Well, having all the information I could get, and with one little item dated California, June 26, 1942, tucked away in my pocket, I put in a fast call to Walt, who was at the home of the late George Lexington.
Yeah?
What did you find out?
Well, someone could have gotten in the back door. There were some blurred footprints outside in the garden, but they won't help. If you had a key, you could let yourself in and walk right up the study.
What about the phone call?
There was no call made from here to your office, but one of the names on the list paid off. Mrs. Julia Wright out on Long Island. Now, would you mind telling me what this is all about?
You stay right there, Walt. I'm going out to see Mrs. Julia Wright.
If she called your office today at 3:45, you certainly must have talked to her.
George Lexington called my office today at 3:45.
But he couldn't have. The butler said Lexington wasn't out of the house and the call wasn't made from here.
Well, someone called.
Maybe it was the right day. Maybe she got a low voice and told you she was Lexington.
Walt.
No?
Oh, forget it. You wouldn't like it anyway.
Mr. Diamond?
How do you do, Mrs. Wright?
My butler says your business is a matter of life or death.
Well, that's a little exaggerated, but it's one sure way of getting by the red tape.
Then what is your business, Mr. Diamond?
I'm from the police.
Oh.
Do you know Mr. George Lexington?
Why, yes, slightly.
Are you married, Mrs. Wright?
Very happily. What is your interest in Mr. Lexington, Mr. Diamond?
Do you know June Morris?
Quite well. I've known her family for at least 10 years.
She's being held for the murder of George Lexington.
Oh, that poor girl.
She was engaged to Lexington at one time, wasn't she?
Yes. He was a beast. Believe me, Mr. Diamond, he deserved killing.
I thought you said you only knew him slightly.
June used to tell me how terribly he treated her.
A phone call was made from your house yesterday at approximately 3:45 to El Dorado 1234.
I don't believe I know anyone at that number. Are you sure?
A man made it. I talked to him.
My husband wasn't home yesterday. Oh, perhaps it was my lawyer. He was here about that time. In fact, I believe he did make a call. Said it was on business. A call from the library.
What's your lawyer's name, Mrs. Wright?
Why, Mr. Lucius Farnsworth.
I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. I certainly don't like the guy, but his reputation's been spotless.
It's just got to be, Walt.
Here's the girl, Lieutenant.
Come in, Miss Morris.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Hello, Mr. Diamond.
June, the note you received was written on the typewriter in your den.
What?
Lab just sent up a report.
You think I sent that note to myself?
No. But can you remember anyone using the typewriter in the last 2 days?
No. No one has used it but myself.
What about the night of the party?
Who uses a typewriter at a party?
Anyone go in the den and maybe lock the door?
What? Why, yes. As a matter of fact, Mr. Farnsworth said he had to make some business calls. He went in and closed. You don't think that...
That Farnsworth did it?
It's absurd. He's been with my family for years.
Did he introduce you to George Lexington?
Yes, it was at a party at Julia Wright's.
Did Mr. Farnsworth know that you owned a gun?
No one knew it.
Were you actually using that knife the night of the party?
Yes, I sliced some turkey.
You remember what kind of a suit Mr. Farnsworth was wearing that night?
He was wearing a dinner jacket.
Lexington was blackmailing you, wasn't he?
I can't answer that.
Oh, honey, believe me, if you don't trust us and it comes out anyway, we'll have no way of stopping it.
Oh, right, it was blackmail. I was going to marry George. There were some letters, a picture. He broke off the engagement and began demanding money. Last week he mentioned something about leaving town, and I received the note. I couldn't afford that kind of money, and I was just tired of paying month after month. I decided to kill him, and I was going to kill myself. I guess I lost my nerve.
Let's go see Mr. Luke Farnsworth, Rick.
June, you sit right here until we get back.
Be careful.
You could make a book on it. I'm going to drive you home. Use your paw.
All right.
There he comes.
Yes, what did... Oh. What do you want, Lieutenant?
Got any hot coffee?
If this is your idea of some kind of a joke...
Mind if we come in?
I most certainly do.
Thanks.
How dare you break in here like this? I can cause you a great deal of trouble, Lieutenant.
How well did you say you knew George Lexington?
Only slightly.
Hey, get a load of these fancy ashtrays, Walt.
Yeah, but I don't go much from modern. Pretty drapes, though.
Oh, the policemen are being casual.
You only knew Lexington slightly, huh?
Yes, and this is the third time I've said it.
You must make a lot of money.
I have wealthy clients.
How much did Jack Short pay you to get him out of that manslaughter charge?
What?
You remember him. Sensational case. Made you quite a reputation.
Of course I remember it.
This Short was sure a handsome fella. Did he change his name later?
I don't know. That was a long time ago.
Didn't he change it to Lexington? George Lexington?
What is this all about?
Mind if we look around the place?
I most certainly do.
Is that your bedroom?
You have no right to go in there. Where's your warrant?
Nice bedroom.
Get out. Get out. I'll call the commissioner.
Why don't you do that? These your keys?
Put those down.
Take it easy.
I wonder if one of these fits a back door to George Lexington's study.
Don't be ridiculous. I've only been to Mr. Lexington's house twice in my life. Arthur, the butler, will verify to that.
You mean you've only been there twice, but the front way?
I mean exactly that. What are you doing in that closet?
Nice wardrobe. This your dinner jacket?
Lieutenant, I warn you.